of sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Osayan, Nikituaya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Wagwan, uh, um, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Habarigani, Akuaba, Madaase, Etesen, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, the Nefra Kukatana Wewe, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, Grand Rising, Bakwar Tav, Barakalat Shem Yechava, Anai Kwafan, Kwahalat Servants of Christ, Mashalam Chim. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for being with us on this rising. Thank you for your prayers as we were traveling and getting back in place. Um, I believe I got to check on one last person who had a little bit of detour, but I believe everybody has made it back to their destination safely and securely. And so we praise Yah for that. We're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to be before you one more again. And we wish you nothing but shalom, but peace in your lives. We're going to continue in the series that we've been. Prayerfully, everybody who's coming over from Thursday Rising Prayer and everything okay. And hopefully all is well with you all. We thank Minister Anais for leading us as she always does diligently. And we appreciate love each and every one of you for taking time out and effort to make sure that you are, in fact, doing those things with each other. Uh, this Saturday coming up, so everything is pretty much the same. We'll be on tonight uh, for a live session on YouTube and on TikTok at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Friday's schedule is what it is. We will probably have a SOC community meeting. Um, More than likely on Saturday, we'll probably have a quick SOC community meeting at about 2 p.m. Eastern New York time. Very quick, just kind of making sure once again we have announcements and everything in place and everybody's ready to go. Everybody's aware of who they need to call for what, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so we'll try to make sure that we have all those things together ASAP, ASAP, all that great stuff. So if for some reason, well, just plan on Saturday having our meeting. This Saturday we're going to have something special at 7 p.m. Eastern New York time on Zoom. So if you'd like to join us, something similar to what we did last month to get us ready for when we start next year for our marital meetings and things like that. So that'll be coming up on Saturday. Everything else the same as usually scheduled for our second Saturdays. Um, and yeah, we're back on track. So we've been on track. We didn't stop being on track, but everything that we've been doing is there. Don't forget a safe place. Don't forget on Sunday, 5 to 10, if you're doing it weekly, 5 to 10 program that we're doing to make sure that we have some stuff together for SOC community things and building up so that by the time we hit spring and other other things as far as holy days and stuff, we'll have some stuff already ready and together to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. Praise Yah. So hopefully you were able to get the book, and if not, you can actually go and look for the PDF. So literally, I'm going to do it right now. I did it yesterday when I was studying just to make sure. If you look up Neely Fuller Jr., Neely space Fuller, Fuller space Jr., and then type in PDF, right? If you do that on Google or on Pride or whatever your search engine is of choice, if you were to do that right now, you'll come across something. And I believe it should be like the first one that pops up, the prescribed, I believe. And when you come through there, it literally just takes you right to the book. And you should be able to scroll through the whole thing. There are different versions of it. There's some versions that actually have a bunch of, they have a whole bunch of, what do you call it, advertisements and stuff like that. But this has some advertisements in it, to be honest. But you should be able to scroll through the book. That's what I'll be using today if you'd like to be able to follow right along with this. So if I say this page or this page or this page, etc. Now ads will pop up. As a matter of fact, one's popping up now. So I'm going to have to, I'm trying to see how they work on here. It works different than on my phone. But long story short, we'll be we should be able to go straight through this book together, and you should be able to see certain things. So once again, the name of the book is The United Independent Compensatory Code System, Code/System/Concept. Okay. Once again, the United Independent Compensatory Code/System/Concept. written by Neely Fuller Jr. Okay, you should be able to find that wherever you are. Prayerfully, you're able to get it. If you don't want to buy it, pretty much everything that I saw comes with you having to have a bunch of advertisements, or somebody finds me a different link that we don't have to use advertisements in, or those reading it, or you could just buy it. But I'll use the same thing that you guys are going to be using. I also would suggest, as usual, make sure that you got a copy of your Bible or an app ready to go in case we need to go into the Word, because we still are going to make sure we're coming through our culture. Mr. Fuller does not necessarily believe in everything that we believe in. That being said, though, this is a great book for us to be able to use and to get some kind of information and stuff out of. Okay, so we just wanted to make sure that we get that in place so you can in fact use that. So we're going to go once again to this book. Once again, last time the book is entitled The United Independent Compensatory Code slash System slash Concept, and it is by Neely Fuller Jr. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead, we'll get into that. We'll go through some scripture as led by Holy Ghost, and this will be what we'll be using for about a couple weeks more. We started this on Tuesday, so a couple days ago, and we kind of introduced it, and now we're going to go by a few pages here or there. It's a huge book, so we're not going to be able to go through the whole entire thing, but we shall go through bits and pieces of it. I'm on? All right. So one more time. Okay, once it's The United. I'll say it one more time, then we got to get into it. All right. But if you look up, here's the easy way too. Like I said earlier, literally Google Neely, Neely, Fuller Jr., Neely Fuller Jr., and then type in PDF. It's going to pop up. All right. But if you want the title of the book, once again, so if you just type in his name, Neely, Neely, Fuller, Fuller, Jr., PDF, it will pop up and then you'll be able to find it. Now, once again, it does come with advertisements. So be ready for that if you're doing something for free. Most of the ones I found pretty much are going to deal with advertisements. I'm even going to use that one just so that we're all on the same page. And so you can't, I don't want anybody saying I couldn't find it, blah, blah, because you're using a different thing, right? So you can buy the book. You can get it virtually, or you can just, if you look it up for the PDF, if I get another link with the PDF in it, we'll try to post it in different places so you guys will be aware of where you can find the link without having to go through all that. Okay. But for right now, the name of the book is The United Independent Compensatory, Compensatory, Code slash System slash Concept. The United Independent Compensatory Code slash System slash Concept. It is written by Neely Fuller Jr. Once again, easy way to go about it too is just type in Neely Fuller Jr. PDF. No problem. No reason to apologize. No reason to apologize. I'm just saying. So if you type in Neely Fuller Jr., that's his name, Neely, Neely, Fuller Jr. PDF, then it should pop up. It should be the first choice that you get if you're Googling. If for some reason you're not able to get that, or whatever the case might be, just text me, text somebody, whatever the case might be, and we'll make sure we help each other out. All right? Okay. All right, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's say shalom to everybody, peace real quick, and then we'll get started. How you doing, Beck? How you doing, Cultural Prospect? Everybody on YouTube, podcast, Facebook, TikTok, we appreciate, love you. Thank you for being on today with us. We're honored to have you again with us as usual. How you doing, babe? Once again, my wife is on the Honorable Alma. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. How you doing, Rasta Queen? How you doing, Sister Sherry? Como estás, mi hermana? How you doing, Jake? Wavy Davy? Let's see. I'm sorry. Let's see. I think I saw Gumbo, Barack, Broody Charlie, Shaba, Broody Charlie. I told you, sir. You did it again. Amen. How you doing, Sister Monica? How you doing, Dr. T? Everybody, Sister Jennifer Connolly. We got a few Jennifers. Praise Yah. How you doing, Genuine Love? Rodney, Real Life Jamaica. Shalom, peace, peace, peace. Thank you for the love. Let's see, Sister Mavis, Dante, Lottie Dine, everybody. Appreciate you. Shalom Keith is on. Captain Planet, Abdullah Rahim. Abdullah Rahim. Everybody, come on in. Thank you so much for being on. We appreciate, love you. And Darius, everybody. All right, be safe on your travels. All right, here we go. We're going to say our Bible pledge real quick, and we'll jump right in to today's topic. Once again, we're going to be coming from the book, the Neely Fuller book. All right, so prayerfully, you guys are ready for that, right? So we'll say our Bible pledge real quick and jump right in. You can repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword, And this will I trust, for Yahshua is Lord. No sort of God shall ever be heard, for this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Atshem Yehavah, Aman, which is in Yahweh's name, his Shem, his authority. Amen. All righty. All righty. So we're going into the book once again. Last time title, or well, not last time, but just one more time before we get started. It's called The United Independent Compensatory Code System. I'm sorry, the United Independent Compensatory Code /System /Concept. This is by Neely Fuller Jr. All right. Okay. So here we go. So when we go right in, it says about the author of this book. That's where we're going to start. So whatever version you have, I told you I'm going to be using the one that's on Google. It says Google. If you Google Neely Fuller Jr. PDF, the first thing that pops up, just so we can be on the same page. I'm not sure which version you're using. That's what I'm going to use for us throughout this whole entire series. And if you Google Neely Fuller Jr. PDF, type on the first thing that should pop up when you Google NEELYFULLER Jr. Okay, it says the writer / author of this book has been, like millions of others, a longtime victim of and servant to racism or white supremacy. We've already talked about what those terms mean when we did the intro. Okay, that's why we went through the introduction on Tuesday, and we told you guys if you can get a hold of it, read through some of it and stuff like that. Okay, because we got a lot in this book. So I'm going to be skipping around a bit in this book. All right, we're not going to be doing every single thing that's in the book. It's going to be impossible for us to do in just a couple of weeks. But we want to see some of the things that are code as we get ready to create a safe place, hashtag a safe place, coming up in the year 2025, right? We want to continue to expand the safe place. That also means we have to realize that there are places out there and spaces out there that some of our people are in and still in, and some of us are still in and servants too. And so we need to recognize what racism is and white supremacy is, at least according to this code, right? That's what we're going through. Okay, so when we talk about racism, I know some people don't like using that term. Remember, we talked about racism is not an act, right? Racism is a system. It's a noun. And then that system can be person, places, or things. White supremacy, according to this, is not talking about you're supreme because you're white. White supremacy is talking about a system that's set up. Racism, right? A competition, a system. Ism is a system. Race is a competition. So this system that's based on competition is a system of white supremacy. That's why it's racism, the system of competition, white supremacy. White supremacy on its own does not exist, but white supremacy within the prism of racism does. How you doing, double OG, triple OG? Was looking sharp, right? Was looking sharp, right? So you hear what I'm saying? So there's a difference, right? Is it Abba and preach? You know, all black people don't look, well, to certain persons, all black people look alike, right? But, right, Abba and Preach wouldn't even touch this. But nevertheless, right, like, no offense, I like Abba and Preach, but they won't touch this. But that being said, right, or at least their platform is not touching this. But anyways, that being said, right, racism, right, white supremacy does not exist within itself, but white supremacy exists within the system that this race or this competition benefits only certain persons where they always end up supreme within that system. We talked about that at length, but I just want to make sure we're reminded of that, right? So anybody, if you're having a problem with us talking about this term white supremacy, that's why there are certain persons who call it racism. If you've been in certain Afrocentric circles, you've heard persons speak like this before. It is called racism, white supremacy. How you doing, Sister Shirley? The reason is because it's racist. It's what? Racism, white supremacy. Meaning what? It means that it is a system, right, of competition to where only so-called, because we know that the color white isn't even a real thing. The color white means clear. But that being said, within the system, ISM of race of this competition means that only so-called white persons, and not all, but only a few, are supposed to always end up supreme or on top. That's the difference. So before somebody goes in, oh, you're racist, blah, blah. We even talked about persons don't even know what that word racist means. We talked about that too, right? But we're not talking about, oh, just because you're white, you're supreme. We're not saying a white person is supreme to you. That's not the prism. We're talking about a code. And if we're going to replace things we've been taught, then we got to make sure we put some other code in place. So when we say here, for these next couple of weeks especially, racism, white supremacy, we are not saying that because you are white, you are automatically supreme. We're not saying that all white persons even fit into this, right? For example, when George Washington was voted in, who was allowed to vote? White women weren't allowed to vote. Not all white men were allowed to vote. Black persons weren't even considered to be people, right? And same thing for natives, etc., right? So therefore, only 6% of rich white landowners, right? 6% of everybody was a rich white landowner, and even a percentage of them were not allowed to vote because they wanted to have a 100% vote, which means it was a dictatorship, as you guys would call it today, right? Where basically they forced everybody to vote for George Washington. Then they turned around and lied to you and told you, oh, that was just everybody was enamored. If you've ever seen any see, had it been any other person, had it been um now I'm forgetting my man's name, Idi Amin, that did that, had it been Fidel Castro who had done that, right? Had it been Colonel Gaddafi who had done that, everybody would have had a problem because you would have said, "Hey, how is it that he's getting such that, or is forced, or we don't know." If you force a vote to where only who you want to be voted in is able to get in, then we would usually call that, at least according to modern terminology, we would say that you are a dictator. So even when we say racism, white supremacy, the goal is to get so-called white persons to believe that they are all better because of the color of their skin, while at the same time showing you that while at the same time behind the curtain, if you can get back there, you will be shown that really only certain persons are getting this stuff, but they're using white supremacy as a way to get a lot of persons to agree that only that white persons are better. All right, that's what we're talking about. Racism, white supremacy. Okay? All right. I know some persons don't dig that language and you think that it means something else. That's why, once again, this is a book on code. All right. So about the author, right? He says that he, like many millions of others, are a long-term victim of and servant to racism, white supremacy. And we are servants of Christ. We are not servants of racism, white supremacy. It's important that we catch this. Okay. So it says after that, racism, white supremacy in all areas of activity. And how many areas of activity? Right, there's going to be 9 that we're going to focus on at some point in this. But we've actually gone over, we did a little talk about this a long time ago where we brought up the 9. But in how many areas of activity? All. Thank you. Thank you, babe. All. So racism, white supremacy, when somebody says you see it in everything, yes, because it's in all activities. Any activity that you do in the United States of America, it's supposed to be based off of racism, white supremacy. If it's LGBTQ plus, guess what it's supposed to be based off of? How you doing, Minister Shante? Uh-oh, you don't want to go there. It's based up, right? If it's supposed to be toxic masculinity, who are the persons who told you there was a such term as toxic masculinity? All activities, right? If you were going to a historically black college and university, it was not started by black persons historically or universally, which means that even at an HBCU, it's in that activity as well. Right? For those of you who don't know how to read the Bible and don't want to go back to the original format and the terminology and what it actually means when it was originally written, and you only want to go off of even certain standards that are not ours, whether they be Jewish or Christian nationalism or anything like that, guess what? Even this, if you're not careful, is designed to make sure that all activities, somebody's preaching from a pulpit today, somebody's preaching from a pulpit on Sunday, or on Wednesday for Bible study, on Thursday for Bible study, on Saturday for your service, whatever it is, there's somebody who doesn't recognize that white supremacy is in all activity. That's what the system runs off of. And until you get yourself separate from the system, which means you have to get separate from the code, and therefore you have to recognize that there's supposed to be enmity between those who are in the word, in the law, and in the system, in the code. Until you recognize that, you will be going through the same thing. You'll be studying scripture through the prism of white supremacy. I know you don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. That's if we want to go there, you have to recognize that even when somebody's talking about Jesus versus Yehoshua, guess what we're talking about? Salah. I told you this is gonna be a tough series. We probably not gonna have numbers. There's probably gonna be SOC members that are gonna think I'm going too far. But I want to give you the truth. And everybody who's joining us, right? Shalom to you, peace. But we gotta tell you the truth. Right? If you're looking at this through the prism of Jesus Christ, then you're looking through this through the prism of racism, white supremacy. If you're looking through this through the prism of Yehoshua, then you're looking at this through the prism of the Negro. Whether you like it or not, because the Negro wrote this. You don't know what a Negro is. A Negro, if you look it up, until the language was changed in the 1500s, a Negro was always considered to be an Israelite. So it's important that we have a Negro code so that we can see how Negroes think, or else you'll get this through the prism of racism, white supremacy. Once again, this is not saying every white person is a white supremacist. This is talking about those who will win will always be white. So those who are white will have a better chance at winning if they go through the prism correctly. This is not saying that you can't be white and be poor, but a poor white man in chattel slavery times, including today, because chattel slavery is still on the books, it's still legal, right? So a white person, according to the prism that you're living in, many of you are still living in, it says that what? They are supposed to have a better opportunity because they're white. This is why somebody like me with this hair coming in could be more educated than everybody at your corporate office. But because of the way that I look, because I don't have the shirt and the tie on anymore, because I don't have the belt on that they want, I have the belt of truth on, not the belt that they have, because I have a breastplate of righteousness rather than making sure that I'm doing things that are, legal but not necessarily lawful. I am automatically, because of the way I look, I am supposed to be looked down upon. This is why you have certain persons that will say he speaks so well. How you doing, Brother Jacob? Right? So we're looking at it through a different prism. So here we go. So in dealing with this, we have to recognize Neely Fuller Jr. is saying, hey, in all areas, this is in all areas of activity. And many of us have not only been victims of racism, white supremacy, that means white persons as well, too. Because you have to have your mindset changed. And some of you have thought that because you're better because of the color of your skin, even if it was what they call subconsciously, there are certain things that are put in there. And then later on, you realize I got to get out the system, too. Right? Because it's messing with me and it's messing up relationships, and I can't even see the word for what it is, because if I believe that Jesus has to be white, right, and Jesus has to be real, I will never know Yehoshua for who he is and recognize that through who he is, he can take care of all. Through white supremacy, he has to look at who you have to say he looks like that so that he can only take care of those who are supreme. But in this, he takes care of all. See, it's a different prism. It's a different lens. I'm not coming here today to tell you white persons are all evil. I'm not here to tell you that you're great just because you're black. Not all Israel is Israel, and not all skin folk is kinfolk. That's not my purpose. That's not why I'm sent here today. So if that's what you came here for, if that's what you might be looking for, how you doing, Auntie Mary? If that's what somebody's trying to tell you later on down the road, oh, this is what he believed, that's not what we believe, right? That's not even what Neely Fuller Jr. believes, the author of this book. What we're coming down to tell you today is that if you're going to be in righteousness and right lawful standing, then you must recognize that this racism, white supremacy is real, and that there are persons who are driving very hard, doing everything they can to ensure that we are off track and that we're against each other. We need a code, or at least something different. Now we know we already have the real true code, right? This code will agree with much of it, but we already have a code that goes beyond it. And once you know the culture and the language, you already recognize the code, right? But we're going to learn some things that might help you a little bit on your journey. So it's in all areas of activity, right? Neely Fuller Jr. says, my experiences, observations, and or studies have led me to believe the following. So what are we going off of? He's telling you straight up when we start this. What are we looking for? He says this is not just something random. How you doing, Sister Deborah? He says my experiences. I have experience. Right, and he's our elder, by the way, too. If you ever I told you guys, look up some of his interviews, even look up some of the cartoons that have been made around his experiences, his talks, his beliefs, his stuff, etc. Right? Look up some of those things and you'll discover that he's telling you things from how he's lived. You said Ephesians 2:16? Oh, that he might reconcile both unto Elohim in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. Come on. Amen. Praise Yah. I see you, right? Praise Yah. So, yeah, so our goal is reconciliation, but reconciliation to Christ through the code, to Mashiach through the code, to Elohim through the code, to Yahasada through the code, graft in through the code. So we got to figure out what this other code is talking about. And if we're speaking code, that's the wrong code, or we're still living through a prison that's not for us. So he says, I wrote this, what? His experiences helped him in this. His observations. He said, then I sat back, I observed as well. I looked at what persons do. Right? How you doing, Raphael? Right? He said, I looked at that. I looked at what other persons do as well. He said, then I also studied. So I'm a student. So many persons talk about racism and have never studied racism. You feel me? Persons say you're not even supposed to see it. So many persons, what you've done is you've been taught about racism and have taught to not study it, or to study how bad it was, but it no longer exists, because you're going to be somebody who acts like it doesn't exist. You're going to be somebody who says it's not real. But the fact of the matter, right? They'll even say, well, racism and all these racist words, they say that they're constitutional rhetoric, or or it's a prism that was made up. It's not real. How you doing, Sister Tia? They'll tell you this all the time. It's a prism. It was just made up. It's not real. It's not this. It's not that. No. Racism, white supremacy, even if the concept is not real, if you teach something long enough, guess what happens? Your hope leads to your faith. Your faith, and when you work it, becomes what? Manifest. And so now something that is not real as far as universal law has become something that has become a natural thing for you. You live in cognitive dissonance. Deep down inside, you know that white racism, white supremacy should not have ever existed, but due to sin, right? And you living in sin long enough, you have been in the system of racism, white supremacy, which is a worldwide system. Are you hearing what I'm saying, beloved? This is a worldwide system. How you doing, Sister Snap? This is not a sometime system. This is not a sometime. This is not every once in a while. This is not, it's only in the United States of America. This is why you have to realize that in order to even talk about racism, you must grow. Because many of you only think about racism within your street. When he says he got this off observation, this means he observed more than just his street, right? This is why you have to be careful about persons like Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne was somebody who, basically was a young street dude. Like, let's keep it a buck. And is a child prodigy. So he's a child actor. Like, you know how child actors work? How child actors start acting up and stuff like that? He was a child, rap artist, a child celebrity. We don't think about him that way. But Lil Wayne was only a couple years, older than me, talking about what he was talking. Or might even be about the same age, actually. Right? And so Lil Wayne, when he says something like racism's not real, and he say black persons are the only person that done something to me, but a white police officer, he's the one that saw me shot up, and the black persons, they just jumped over my body, but he picked me up and said, what are y'all doing? And he's the one that made sure that I got over my gut shot, and I'm here today because of a white person. And look, praise y'all for the white person that helped you. But it's in everything. Yeah, I would there are some that would argue this with me, Sister Michelle. I'm not saying you are. There are some that would argue this with me, though. I would tell you that, yeah, in every area. Because you have to tell me what nation hasn't been influenced by racism, white supremacy. If you can show me, I'm not saying, see, and then what somebody will do is they'll say, no, because black persons are in charge there. Okay, well, in Ghana, the presidents that we've had in charge recently, do they represent us, or are they paid by somebody else? See, in South Africa, where persons are trying to now tell you and I that they're more African than we are because their children might have been born there, forgetting the fact that, hey, wait a minute, we took the land from them, the Dutch, the English. What about France, who's really a third world country, and the only thing keeping them alive is because they still are forcing African nations, with the help of the United Nations and CIA and others, they're still forcing African nations to pay them reparations because they are not allowed to publicly, or at least as far as that word being used, not in a lawful sense, but being used as far as what you guys see all over the place. It's not supposed to be known that, hey, France is falling apart, and if it's not for us, they wouldn't exist. You see what I'm saying? The whole world, even Ethiopia, who has never been under somebody else's rule, they got rid of their king because they started because the CIA and others started influencing them by sending them, what is it that y'all like? Not Machiavellism. Everybody talks about, I forget what it's called, but it's some kind of thing that everybody learns. And they sent them this rhetoric that's anti their culture. Then they got rid of their king, who supposedly, according to them, is supposed to go all the way back to Sheba and King Solomon and Menelik. You see? So, yeah, so everybody in some way, shape, or form, including white folks, talk to the Irish about this, talk to the Danish about this, talk to the those of Wales about this, the Norwegian about this, talk to the Scottish about this. They will tell you they're under racism, white supremacy as well. You see, England, when you talk about England, England is the island. right? Where the Gulls and the Jutes and the Franks and others had been going for a while, and then they got taken over too, and half of their persons were eradicated. And now anybody who considers themselves to be English is somebody bowing down to a crown that actually was part of eviscerating their people. See, that's what I'm saying. We think of racism, white supremacy only from the prism of the United States of America. Many of us only through what Malcolm X said, right? Maybe you know about Kwame Nkrumah. If you do, you're starting to open up and branch out. Maybe you know about Sankara. Maybe you know about Chavez. Maybe you know about some of these names, but many of us don't. Many of us only know about the prism of this one area. And so if you're not careful, you'll go the wrong way. See, racism, white supremacy is a worldwide I would say phenomenon, but somebody worked hard to put it in place. Racism is a system. It's systematic. That means somebody put it in place on purpose. It's also systemic. That means it works on its own. If it's systematic, it means somebody literally took time out to put, like the Bible is systematic. The culture, the kingdom is systematic. Yahweh put this stuff in on purpose, but it's also systemic. If you put it in your life, it begins to work on its own. So that's why when somebody says, Pastor Kofi, how do I do this and how do I do with finance and blah, blah, when I say work the system, I'm telling you, there's things I cannot explain. I just know that I do what it says and I'm faithful to it and my wife is faithful to it and my child is faithful to it and those in our circle are faithful to it and SOC is faithful to it and we hang around persons that are faithful to it. And before you know it, some things are not explained other than it's the way the system works. So I can't tell you how every blessing, blah, blah, this and that all the time, but I can tell you that it's systemic and it was systematically or purposefully put in place by the Most High, that if we would follow what's in the system, you have to live in the system. And if you're in the system and you work the code, you'll get the manifestation. Same thing in racism, white supremacy. If you follow it and you do what it says, you'll get what it says. And what does it say, though? It doesn't say everybody's supposed to be rich. It doesn't say everybody's supposed to be taken care of. It says that there are certain white persons that are supposed to be at the top and supreme at the end of every competition, which means it's rigged. Right? Now, the kingdom is rigged, if you will, because if you follow it, it's guaranteed you'll win. Right? And their system is rigged. If you follow it, wherever they say you fall is where you're supposed to fall. Will there be some exceptions in their system? Of course. There are black billionaires, but ask yourself, do the black billionaires, do they make sure you eat? If look, praise God. If this ever happens in my life, I'm not sure if this is ever supposed to happen. I haven't been told it's supposed to happen, right? The Holy Spirit has never said it's supposed to happen. I'm sorry, how you doing, Elroy? Amen. The greatest trick of the devil is to make sure that you think he doesn't exist. Praise God, right? I'm not saying it's supposed to happen. This is not a prophetic word. I'm just telling you, if this were to ever happen to me, if I were ever to become a billionaire, do you not know that there's no way in the world that anybody in SOC is ever paying for food again? Do you hear what I'm saying? This is why certain persons are not supposed to make it in this system. How you doing, Sister Alyssa? Do you hear what I'm saying? I promise you, because that's light work. I'm serious. That's light work. To make sure that we have food and land and a place to stay, like that's easy. If I'm a billionaire, I don't care if I'm paying taxes or not. Let's say I pay taxes, fine. Then that means I'm making about, well, depending. If I'm a billionaire, I probably know how to make sure I keep my money. But let's say if they give me $1 billion and I get half of it taken away, I only got 500 million left. Do you know that for $1 million a year, there's no way that anybody at SOC ever goes without food again? But those who don't think that's even feasible, right? So if you got a black billionaire, love what LeBron James is supposed to represent. But if LeBron James was on time with what he's supposed, look, I'm not trying to say he's a bad person, bad father, whatever. I'm telling you the mindset of racism and white supremacy tells you that he started a school which he's not really even in charge of. But because his name's on it, we're supposed to go see, look what he did for black folk, blah, blah. But the reality is that what if everybody who went to that school could eat and had their own business and therefore didn't need to be schooled outside of what he told them to be schooled in? And they didn't need to be focused on getting a degree from somewhere else, but they could make sure that they put that money into their own businesses, their own family, and stuff like that. See, a billionaire, you got to comprehend, what is $1 million to a billionaire? Do you know that I'm not 100% sure. If my wife is on, baby, if you're on, if somebody else knows this as well, my wife is the one who taught me this, so that's why I'm asking her. But I'm not sure what the number is, but let's say, I think it's like, if you were to try to count to 1 million and you didn't have to take a breath, you hear, okay, babe, make sure I'm on the right path. I think it would take you, it's either 74 or 84 years, something like that, if you didn't breathe. If you didn't need to stop for breathing to count to a million or a billion. Because I know it's a million, 1 million is 144. Okay, so maybe it's 1 million. You would need 144 years to count 1 million. Thank you, babe. So to count from 1 to 1 million, like persons don't recognize how much 1 million is. Now imagine this. What is 1 billion? 1 billion is what? 1 billion is 1,000 millions. When somebody has 1 billion, it's almost, and you almost cannot count it. It's impossible. Yeah, if you had several lifetimes, you could not count to 1 billion if you tried. So, but we don't have a mindset in your mind. I don't care how much inflation is right now. If somebody has a billion of anything, they cannot spend it. If they're spending, especially if they're focused on community, you couldn't spend it if you wanted. Right? Now that's the point, is the focus. So that's why I'm saying racism, white supremacy is in everything. Go get your bread, Brian. Go get your bread, Jordan. Go get your bread, Kobe. Go get your bread, whomever. I know I'm just in basketball right now, but I'm just saying, go get your bread. But they're not really thinking like, hey, you give out turkey for one time during the Thanksgiving and all that. Okay, I guess that's sweet, but have a whole field of turkeys, have a whole field of chickens, right? And make sure that your people have access to it for free, no matter what. You would never run out of money if you did that. Somebody else who's a millionaire, 100 million. Somebody else, hey, I'm going to take care for the rest of my life. I'm going to make sure that everybody always has tomatoes, corn, squash, right? Somebody else, I'm going to make sure for the rest of my lifetime we always have, watermelon, lamb. Okay, somebody else, like, that's how easy it is. But we are in a system. Thank you for the love. We're in a system that makes us believe. And how you doing, Josh? We're in a system that makes us believe that this stuff is insurmountable. It's not. It's a system in your mind to where you don't even believe. Yeah, to command and control. That's what they do. And in your mind, you don't even think of what that is. Imagine if somewhere down the road, and I believe it's definitely possible. We just have to put our mind to it. But as we grow, SOC just putting away what we're supposed to put away, and even starting to invest down the road. Maybe we're not in a place where we're safe enough to do that yet. But down the road, maybe we have some left over. We invest some things there. We get $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, right? Person start going food bill, or phone bill and this bill and that bill. First things first. If you eat, you're gonna be straight. If there's a way that even if you're homeless on the street, we make sure that you get 3 meals a day. And you don't even need 3 meals a day. That's somebody else's prison. But let's say you get them 3 meals a day. You have access to it. How much more work would you get done? How much money would you save? Right? How much? Some of you are paying for the organic food and the best food that you get. You're paying hundreds of dollars. If you can afford it, you're paying hundreds of dollars every few days just to eat properly. Right? You see the mindset difference? And they all up in the system today. I can see the stuff flashing. Praise God. But we got to make sure. So in this series, this is what we're talking about. Okay, so back to this. So his experiences, his observations, and or studies have led him to believe the following. First things first is racism. Racism what? Has done more to promote non-justice than any other socio-material system known to have been produced or supported by the people of the known universe. Now that's the prism we're coming through. I would say sin, right? I would say the kingdom of wickedness, right? But we're focusing on racism. So this is his prism, right? That we're going through. How you doing, Warman 723? You said it's an overwhelming amount of money. That cup continues to run over. Praise God. And by the way, our daddy, our father, he owns all the cattle in 1,000 hills. So what is, there is no such thing as we running out or we don't have enough, right? But when you're in racism, white supremacy, and you believe that your father or your source is someone else, right? Those things are hard to believe, aren't they? Wait a minute. We have a system, and it's the bounty that we receive out of this system is without end. It's eternal. No, man, I can't even afford to pay my rent. I can't even. You see what I'm saying? We don't believe that there's a such thing as us having access systemically to something that is far past anything we could ever ask or think, according to the power that worketh where? Where does this power worketh, by the way? And I'm talking about Ephesians chapter 3, verse 21, if you missed it. Where does this power worketh that we talking about? You said you've been trying to get more back to crypto again, trying to get financial. It's not for, and that power worketh in us. So if it worketh in us, then you got to start asking yourself questions. Well, if this works in us, it works in us, then why is it not working? It's in us. So why is it not working? That means we ain't working it. We doubt it. We'll say, I don't think I can pay my bills, so I don't think that I can give what Yah says give. I don't think that I have enough time to watch my favorite show, so I don't think I have enough time to pray. I don't think I have enough time to learn certain subjects to teach my child, so I think that it's better to give my child to the system, to the beast. The system is going to teach your child racism, white supremacy. And then when your child comes back home and they don't seem the same, and they grow up and they're not in the same values, and then when they marry somebody who has different values than you and stuff, then you say, how is this working? Because you don't work it. Their racism, white supremacy is a worked thing, right? It's not a verb, but the system is worked. You got to be in the system. That's right. We got enough time. Right? The system is rigged. We got to start living in a rigged system. Their system is rigged, and our system is rigged. Whichever system you're part of, you're going to get what you ask for. So in that sense, right, we don't believe in predestination, but if you don't believe in any kind of predestination, in that sense, whatever you've decided, whatever system you decided to flow in is a system that you decided to get something out of. That's a word right there. Whatever system you decided to flow in, that's the system you decided to get something out of. That's not on them, that's on you. Come on. I know. I told you this gonna be at least a couple of weeks. We might even do this to the end of the year, and this is not gonna be friendly. This is not supposed to make you feel. I apologize. It's not supposed to help you feel great. I know every sermon not supposed to make you feel. This is gonna help you feel great later on, but you might get spanked a little bit in this series. You might have to get a little spanking in this series, but that's okay, right? And I love you. I only whoop you because I love you. Right? I love you. Holy Spirit loves you. Yahashua loves you. Yahweh loves you. Elohim loves you. SOC loves you. Yahashua loves you. And we want you to be everything you're called to be. Elder Alma loves you. We want you to be everything that you are called to be. And you got to recognize that you're in a system that you're not supposed to, that Yah didn't call you to. Somebody did call you to it. But Yah didn't call you to that. He didn't call you to go through all that stuff you're going through. Salah. So Neely Fuller loves you because he's telling you something. And look, he said something that's powerful. He said he knows by saying this, that he said the reason that he hasn't been gotten, because most of the persons who did this, Malcolm, Martin, etc., right? Look at what they did to the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense, all these things. These persons get shot up. They get offed when they decide to do this, right? If they don't get out of it fast enough, how you doing, Pastor? If they don't get out of the system fast enough, oh boy. Or if they talk about this system, right, too much, you're gonna get, right? He said he recognizes that the reason that somebody hasn't came for him yet is because this is not something that we've taken onus of enough. They don't care if some of you know about this, which is why we're going to actually get a lot further than some, because we're doing things before we build buildings and all this stuff. And then somebody starts recognizing us. No, while we still on the come up, we're going to make sure, oh, no problem. Y'all do what y'all do over there. We're cool with our land over here. There's a tact to this. This is not just random. We're going through a plan, right? A vision. And we're making sure that we do this thing in a certain way. I'm not trying to focus on, hey, so-and-so will get voted in because you say they get voted in. No, that's your thing. They respect that. Your enemy respects, like, let us do what we do over here. Right? And he says that. He says, look, I know one of the reasons why I could write a book like this and many and many persons are affected by it, but nobody's coming for my life. He says straight up, if you ever listen to an interview of his, he says, I know that I should really not be here, but he said, because a lot of persons will see this, will know this to be true, but won't work it. He says that those in charge of racism and white supremacy are not coming for him. That is a statement within itself, beloved. Huh. So I just want y'all to get context of it. But anyway, let's go back to this. So he said racism has done more to promote non-justice than any other socio-material system known to have been produced or supported by the people of the known universe. If you are, so he's saying this system that's in everything, he says he wants you to think about it. Now, once again, I would say sin, because racism is obviously a product of sin. I would say the devil, right? But he's talking about mostly flesh here, right? So he's saying that, but even if you look at it, racism, like we talked about, racism, white supremacy, it affects your religiosity. There's a light-skinned church and a dark-skinned church. Matter of fact, the fact that we say there's a such thing as black church should raise eyebrows to you, right? If you know why people wear white gloves, many of you might not know this. Some of you don't know that persons wear white gloves in service when they wear the white gloves and they do all that. That's because during chattel slavery times, white folk, so-called white persons, did not want to see so-called black persons touching their stuff, touching their communion, touching their their um, their their offerings and stuff like that. And so you had two white gloves, and also there was a fear because these persons of the color of our skin, supposedly we were supposed to just go and we were going to steal your stuff that was in the collection plate. So that's why you have one hand that's under the collection, you can see that, and the other hand is behind your back. A lot of you guys think that that's something that always happened, but if you go to a white church and they have somebody collect your stuff, you never see them do that, do you? You ever thought about that? That's right, everything has a purpose. That's right. You ever thought about that? When you go to a like you've ever been to a Roman Catholic service? You ever been to a Presbyterian service? You ever been to an Episcopalian service? You've never seen anybody, one hand here, one hand behind their back. Because that was never needed in those types of services, at least the white versions of them, the so-called white versions of them, because they don't believe that you'll steal just because of the color of your skin. Matter of fact, you're used to persons doing this. When they get up, they put their finger up. That's because somebody who was a chattel slave, if they were to try and get up, sometimes they actually had services. Now the black folk and white folk couldn't sit together, but the slaves would be in service sometimes with white persons. And when they were in service with their masters, the master would want to know what's going on. So if his slave decided to get up, he or she would put their finger up to let master know, you can track me. Do I have permission, basically? That's right, asking for permission. How you doing, Minister Tamara? And if they gave permission, you kept on rolling out. So when you see somebody do this, even in a black church, you don't think where it comes from, what spirit that is, and what oppression. See what I'm saying? It's in everything. It's in everything. But you don't even think, why do we do that? Why is it that there's a white Jesus when clearly, bare minimum, the argument that they give is he's got to at least be olive colored? But then they still say it doesn't matter. But why does he look like Cesare Borgia? Why does the Bible describe him as having skin that's the color black as if it was burnt in the furnace? Why does it say that when he was found hiding in Kemet when he was 2-3 years old? How is it that Flavius Josephus, who we look to see what Vespasian and other Roman rulers were doing, we read his books, but when it comes to the color of Christ's skin, they say, oh, he was just making stuff up. And in his book, he says he's tired of verses back then, recognizing that an Israelite can teach you about everybody else, but don't teach them about you. Dirt isn't white, it's clear. I hear you, right? But we don't know this. Matter of fact, here's another one for you. In all your areas, in every activity, that's what we're going to be focused on today. If you haven't noticed, we might even get past this page, right? But in every activity, it's in there. It's ingrained, right? In every activity. Question for you: why do you have overseers? How you doing, Minister Stephen? Right. A question for you: why do you have overseers? Why do you need an overseer? Yeah, plantation management. And the overseer, now this is where it gets tricky. Even like in Willie Lynch, it says that you have to teach the family. If you are the white supremacist head of a family, you're supposed to make sure your wife and your children believe in it. Even if they see something that clearly is against it, you're supposed to teach them different. And you're supposed to teach your overseers. The overseers were poor white folk. I got to say that because a lot of you, once again, you're not going to recognize. The overseers were poor white folk. Not rich. See, you got to be careful. When persons do this weird thing where they say, well, stop saying that it's white supremacy, blah, blah, and this and that. Yeah, I grew up poor too. Overseers were poor white folk. That's right. Apostle Paul didn't have an overseer, and John, James, and all of, yeah, most definitely. Right. Now, why am I saying that overseers were poor white folk? Why am I trying to tell you that? Because the overseer was somebody who literally they lived in the same, if not sometimes worse conditions than the slaves. Right? If you ever study where the overseers lived on the plantation, sometimes the overseers didn't have the skills that the slaves did because the slaves were raised and literally trained from birth to have. That's why we had a lot of trades at one point. We were raised from birth to have these trades, but it was for chattel slavery. Or when we were captured, they knew what trades we had, and they would use those to make sure that they built up the things around the plantation. And so now you'll see a lot of places. You'll be surprised when you look at the outside of a slave house. It'll be crazy looking, but you go inside, you're like, yo, this desk is like that. Right? You ever experienced that? Anybody ever seen that? You go to a plantation, you be like, wait a minute, like that quilt. Because like, yeah, they had skills. They made quilts and stuff like that, and they would look better than sometimes stuff that they gave to the owner. Until the massa, until massa found out about it, or his wife found out about it, and they say, hey, give us them and give yourself this. But we did better than what y'all think. Right? Even in chattel slavery. Even if we couldn't get away, there were certain things that we did because we had the craft. We could do these things. But these overseers, they didn't have whole communities living together doing this stuff. The overseers were hated. The overseers, they didn't take care of them like they had to take care of massa. How you doing, Sister Nadine? So the white overseer was the only thing they had going for them that made them better than the chattel slave was that they were white and that they worked for massa. Oh, you want to hear that today? We're gonna go. I told you this for the next couple of weeks. People are gonna be mad at it. It is what it is. Let's have real conversation. The only reason, how you doing, Sister Serlene? The only reason why the overseer was considered to be better than the chattel slave was not because they had trade. It's not because they had money. It's not because they had because they had made it. It's not because they ever were going to become slave owners. They were hoping that their lives would be better, right? Because they were close enough to the master to where when the sun came up to when the sun came down, they were allowed to beat somebody else and they could forget about the situation that they were in, which was actually worse off than the slave. Right? You know how I know this too? Slaves outlived the overseers. Slaves outlived the masters. You have plenty of persons that will talk about their experiences as slaves, 3 to 4 generations, talking about how they saw multiple slave masters and multiple overseers. They were healthier than them, even with the stuff they had to go through. In your mind, though, once again, but see, you got to realize in today, there are many of us that actually are living better than massa, but you keep trying to go in there thinking that the closer you get to him, if I can just get in the house, I know I'll never be Massa, but if I can get in Massa's house and maybe I can sleep in the attic, not in a room, right? But maybe I can sleep in the attic. Matter of fact, maybe if I can sleep with Massa or Massa's wife, it's gonna be rough. I told y'all. If you came here and you thought this was gonna be this ain't gonna be nice for the next couple of weeks. I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to tell you the truth because I love you. All right. Right, you think you are, come on, you think you are poor, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, but really you are rich. This is why this book exists. It's for us to make sure that we going by code and not they code. Right? So back to the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept written by our dear Neely Fuller Jr. I'm on. Y'all with us so far? I'm not getting somebody's frustrated. We ain't even got to the frustrating and mad and sickening part yet. we haven't even gotten to paragraph 3 yet, or bullet point number 2. All righty. All right. We- Come on now. I see you, Brooks. Eku, or Eku Brooks. I see you. All right. So let's get it. All right, let's get it. All right, y'all ready? How you doing, 904 Gaming? Thanks for being part of the community. The Hebrews of Jamaica. I missed it. Hold on. What you say, Sis Monica? Discover iron making, the British destroy the company and kidnap the founder. Yeah, a lot of that stuff, right? They didn't have. Well, I'll leave that stuff alone. All right, so let's get into this. How you doing, Morris? Let's get into this. All right, so racism has done more to promote. I'm sorry, overseers. Excuse me. So the overseer was there, and they're over. And watch this. So the overseer, last thing, and then we got to keep moving. Right. So the overseer literally was at your services. That's where that big church, that big chair. Some of y'all are familiar. I don't know if they even really do this as much anymore. They still do it in some places, but for the modern churches, they kind of hide this or put it to the side or have a spot where the pastor sits, but it's not the big chair anymore. But some of y'all was raised and they had them really big chairs in your churches. And sometimes they would say nobody gets to sit in this because it was supposed to represent Yahashua. He's our overseer. But then you would have an overseer like the pastor, or if you were autonomous, like they say you can't be an overseer in certain religions. But let's say you were a Baptist, you still the pastor sits in that chair, right, and his right hand man sits to his right, etc., or stage right, and all that, right. But then you have some that would have the overseer or your bishop or your apostle or whatever the case might be, whatever your religiosity is, they sit in that chair. That's the overseer chair. And the reason that chair was there is because you had black pastors. You had slave pastors. They were allowed to learn just enough about the Bible or just enough about reading. They usually would be given a slave Bible, right? And those of you who are coming in May, when we meet up to go to the Bible Museum in DC, we'll show you some versions of the slave Bible. You can actually see if you get a chance to ever go to like Monticello, which is Thomas Jefferson's manor and stuff like that. He has slave Bibles that he ripped even more pages out of because he didn't like anything that made it clear that he was supposed to treat so-called slaves with respect, right? But there's such thing as a slave Bible, and basically it has anything having to do with getting free taken out. And then you would give that Bible not only to those who were around, white and black alike, but especially to those who were pastors of the slaves. And the pastor who was a slave, who was pastor over slaves, Nat Turner was one of those pastors, by the way. They were supposed to get up and they were supposed to preach the word out of the slave Bible. And if they said anything that went against the master's will or against white supremacy, there was an overseer on staff who would sit down in that chair. When he finished, he would get up behind that pastor and he would begin to say, well, that was a nice sermon, but don't forget N-words. Don't forget, y'all supposed to be blah, blah. And that's nice and everything, but he would make sure that y'all recognize that their God, their Jesus, didn't want you to go any further than what it was that you might be trying to do, or that pastor might have thought had you thinking that you deserve respect and blah blah and this and that, and that you shouldn't be touched as a woman by the master and all that. And so he had to come and clean it up. That's why today you still have in your services somebody will usually come behind the pastor. If you guys notice, unless really led to, if you guys notice when somebody on ministerial staff preaches, I don't do anything usually other than just, unless it's the podcast or something. Usually, I'm not. If I say anything behind them, I'm just giving announcements, and then I'm saying, "All right, see y'all later," or I don't say anything at all. I just play the music because if Yah has spoken through them, what else do I need to come behind them and say? Right? Like, let's trust the gift. But they had some. We think of this as a normalcy. And now we've been taught, well, bishops just getting up. This is what used to happen with me in one place. Bishops, he's just getting up to clean stuff up. Or pastor, he just getting up to, and you would notice though, a lot of times they'll even kind of like try to dismiss some of what you preach or go deeper into it. It seems like they preaching a whole nother sermon. The reason they're doing that is because it's a overseer holdup. It's a racism, white supremacy thing. So that's one of the things I've tried to actually get away from. Unless Holy Ghost says, Kofi, get up there and say something, I usually just shut up. Real talk. Unless Holy Ghost says get up there and say something, like I usually just shut up because what's the point of it, right? Dr. T, she preached for 4 days. Y'all haven't heard me come up and say anything about her sermon, not because other than thank you, not because I'm trying to like dismiss it or anything, but because she said what she needed to say. Unless Holy Spirit says preach about it or reteach it or do whatever, why would I touch her? So you got to ask yourself, why do you have somebody who comes up after that? That's because that's what the overseer used to do. Matter of fact, Nat Turner and all others too, as well as Toussaint Louverture and others, they actually learned the word. Like they actually found real Bibles. Nat Turner found an actual Bible, and when he found the Bible, it caused a revolution. right? They don't like when we talk about Pastor John Brown, white cat, but still one of ours. I don't care what nobody say. He's one of ours. That's my big brother in the Lord, right? Who was willing to die. Put his whole family was in on it, right? His wife was in on it. She passed away when he married again. She was in on it. Everybody had to be anti-racism. Everybody had to be anti-racism, white supremacy. Everybody was against chattel slavery. That's the way he wrote. Matter of fact, other white persons who were supposed to be these allies and all this stuff, these abolitionists, he was somebody who noticed that when persons came through the Underground Railroad, that these white persons still treated them like crap, but they let them, they were like, at least you're not a slave no more. And he was one that they didn't like because he would actually call them by their first name. He would actually say Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. He would actually like let them sit at the table and eat with them, right? As much as some of our Afrocentric brethren have been taught this, once again, we're taught through the prism of white supremacy. So when we're talking about freeing ourselves, we're still talking like white supremacists. But a lot of slave revolts happened when they got a real Bible and they learned about Moses. They used to keep that away from us. So Nat Turner learns about Moses. Next thing you know. Now I'm not saying he should have went out and necessarily tried to off everybody, but hey, he was like revolution. He said maybe I'm supposed to be Moses. Harriet Tubman, what did we call her? Moses. Why do you think we called her Moses? Because we learned about in the Bible for the first time and then saw what she was doing. Wow, that's Moses. Toussaint Louverture down in Haiti. What does he do? He learns he's actually somewhere else. He's actually in the United States of America at one point, landowner and everything, learns about the Bible, says, let me go back, and fights. Right? There's the person down, the black man who's sitting up there, and they have that big thing in Savannah, Georgia, right down, a few blocks down from where the church is, where they have the Hebrew characters on it, where the Israelites, the Negroes actually built the stuff in the image of their culture. The Portuguese that were brought over, through St. Thomas and St. Croix and all these different places, whatever, they end up down in Georgia and all these places, even from the Carolinas and stuff coming in through there. So different places all over the world, Native Americans, etc., all having this belief system. They come out, they build this church, and then not too far down in the middle of their square, they have this nice little memorial, and you see a drummer boy. One of the drummer boys is black. And he's a Negro, he's a Hebrew, he's an Israelite who fights for freedom in the Revolutionary War in America, doesn't get the freedom that he's supposed to, and then fights in Haiti and becomes a prince over there. Like this is stuff that we don't know or operate in, but a lot of persons they read the Bible, and when they read the Bible, they began to fight. Do you hear what I'm saying? When they read the Bible, they began to fight on behalf of their people. Oluwadah Equiano. He's somebody who read the Bible and had forgotten on purpose. And basically, he was taken from chattel slavery from West Africa. He's Igbo, and was taken and had forgot about it. He was a little boy and just forgot about everything. Bought his freedom by the time he was 20. And then everybody kept saying, "Read this Bible, read this Bible." He read it. And then he started realizing, wait a minute, all the stuff they're saying in the Bible is how I live from where I came before. And then he realized, wait a minute, we were Israelites. Everybody keeps telling you, stay away from Israel, stay away from the Bible. The Bible is the reason. No, the lack of you knowing what the Bible is and having the overseer mentality come over you at the end of the service is something that has kept you away from who you are for the longest of times. How you doing, Miss Q? And I'm just one that believes you should know who you are. And I'm one that believes that, hey, we should actually know what this book says. I'm just one that believes that it's intelligent for Yahweh's people to go back to him. For if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and fast and pray, repent, turn from their wicked ways, then will he hear from heaven. We've been praying prayers and he can't even hear them because he says you're not qualified for him to hear them. Because when you speak to him, you should speak in code. How you doing, King D252? You hear what I'm saying? When you speak to him, you shouldn't be speaking how you're speaking. You should speak in code. How you doing, daughter of Yah? Right? You should be speaking properly. And we don't know how. So racism has done more to promote non-justice than any other socio-material system known to have been produced or supported by the people of the known universe. And last thing before we go into this next bullet point, this term justice, through this prism, we're talking about in this book, right? When you hear this term justice for the next couple of weeks, at least for the rising service, right? I'm going to try to make sure for all of them. And by the way, too, I apologize. Remember today, we're going to try, I'm going to put the link out on, for everybody. It's going to be public. So anybody should be able to go there, or for everybody who's a free member. So even if you don't want to be a member on Patreon, at least become a free member. What we talked about doing for everybody going through the 12 myths of Christmas, we were supposed to start on the 12th. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe today is the 12th. So at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time. That's the best I can do to make sure the persons can still do live sessions and any other stuff we got going on in between. But every day, that means including Wednesday, every day. So I will have Wednesday off of the live session, but I'll be on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time on a Zoom session. We'll have a special Zoom session for everybody where we'll watch. I don't know. Um, we might have to do it through not Zoom because we're going to be watching videos. So we might present. I don't know. We'll see. We should be able to do this on Zoom. We'll have Clapper as a backup. So if we do need to do it through Clapper, I'll let you guys know beforehand. But right now, let's just assume on Zoom we'll have a special connection thing and everything. I'll try to put in different places, but the easiest way is it'll be set up. Pretty much after this live session today, you should be able to go on Patreon sometime in between when we finish, and at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time, right? Sometime between there, I would say pretty much after we finish. Maybe somebody can just send me a reminder after we finish the live session. I appreciate it. But if we go to this place after we finish the live session, we should or we'll go and we'll just go on Patreon, which is my name, Kofi Afforded, and we're going to do the 12 Myths of Christmas that we've already done before at SOC. We got on the playlist. We'll watch one each day, and men, women, and children, everybody's invited. We'll watch it, we'll go through it, and then we'll talk about it at the end of it. Amen. I won't be able to record the whole thing, but I'll record the conversation that we have afterwards. Okay? So that'll be every day from now through the 24th. We won't do it on the 25th. Through the 24th, we'll go through the 12 Myths of Christmas together. We'll watch the stuff, and then we'll talk about it together. Amen. All right, I forgot to put that in the announcements today. I'll try to make sure I'm more diligent about that. Amen. But back to what we're talking about. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. CVR Lido Sway. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. But so back to this. So as far as racism, though, when you hear this term, from now on, this term, justice is talking about basically justice is talking about anti-racism, white supremacy. So when somebody says you should be working for justice, his mindset is, now we know justice is Yahweh's. At the same time, though, we're supposed to be in our correct works. So we're not sitting up here trying to say we're going to off anybody. We're not sitting up here trying to say we're going to have an army that's literally looking around. We can have an army, but there's not one looking around for everybody to destroy this, that, whatever. Right? What we're focused on in justice is being making a system. We should be dedicated to justice. That's dedicated to what is just. And what is just is anti-racism, white supremacy. All right. Next one. No major problem. What does that say? No major problem. What are we saying again? No major problem, catch this, that exists between the people of the known universe can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. Uh-oh. That's a tough one. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not 100% sure if I'm 100% with that or not, but it's pretty daggone close. No major problem that exists between the people of the known universe, right? Of the people of what? The known universe. So he's saying, even if y'all believe in aliens, he's saying, fine, what we know as far as the people, right? And the people being a nation of human beings, right? No thing that exists between any of us in the known universe can be eliminated. No problems can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. How you doing, love, Detta? Right? You hear? Did you hear that? How you doing, Brother Keith? Did you catch that? So we're saying, so this book is telling us no major problem. Doesn't say no problems. No major problem. Now, what do you think makes it a major problem? Because we're going to hold this accountable to the same level of scrutiny that we would do for anything else, right? If we're studying it, let's study to show ourselves approved, that we could be workmen, that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of a mock, right? Okay, so no major problems. Nothing major. Doesn't mean that you can't get along with somebody on a minor level. Doesn't mean you can't get a job on a minor level. Doesn't mean that you can't even get some land, but you're not going to be able to do anything major for your people. Did you catch that? You're not going to be able to do anything major for your people. Did you catch that? You're not going to be able to have anything made. Your marriages aren't really going to give the fruit they're supposed to. Not until you're in a system that's separated from racism and white supremacy. Uh oh. Uh oh. Holy Spirit, we going somewhere, right? I'm just trying to help you. You're trying to see. Persons are talking about me. Look, it don't matter who you voted for until racism and white supremacy is done away with. It don't matter who the president is. Y'all are starting to get it now. Because the black presidents that you had before were hidden. You didn't know that Eisenhower was black. You didn't know Abraham Lincoln was black. You didn't know the ones that before George Washington that were presidents, and some of them were black. They hid it. They were supposed to hide it because racism, white supremacy was being developed. Uh oh. Uh oh. Are you hearing what I'm saying, beloved? We gotta have some honest conversation. We gotta have some honest conversation, beloved. Right? Until racism, white supremacy is taken care of, it doesn't matter who your president is. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. Doesn't matter if she's Indian or black enough. Doesn't matter if she's married to a white man or married to the blackest of blacks. Doesn't matter if she's put on the Supreme Court justice and now you're expecting her to do something and now she's going to end up doing something different than what y'all expected when she never told you anything different that she was going to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And if you're not even considered to be people or a nation because of the color of your skin or because you're too native or because you're too black, then why in the world did you think you thought you were gonna get something that she never promised? She can't give you what's not hers to give. This system is not designed for you to be able to be up there. She got in there to represent others, not you. And thank you for the love, babe, and thank y'all for the love in general. Right? You're mad at her because she didn't fight hard enough to keep the A word that rhymes with extortion long enough, and that's not her position. She's not supposed to fight for that. You fell for the okie doke because you still believe in the system of white supremacy and racism, or racism, white supremacy. You still believe in that system. And you thought that somehow using that system would get rid of racism, white supremacy because they have a black face on there. That's right, she playing her part. And by the way, she working her job. A lot of y'all got jobs. When you go to your job, do you get to go ahead and change things for racism, white supremacy? You think because you're the black manager, or you're the black chief, or you're the black board member, or you're the black, you think that's going to change everything? You think because you're the black CEO that therefore you'll be able to do things different in the system of racism, white supremacy? Right? You go to school to be taught racism, white supremacy. You went to college to be taught racism, white supremacy. I know you don't want to hear it, right? But I love you too much to lie to you. That's what you went for. All right, next bullet point. The fear, frustration, malice, and confusion that is caused by racism retards or prevents all constructive activity between the people of the known universe. Watch this. The fear, right, which is reverence, but maybe he might even be talking about being afraid. So let me not hold you. I usually see this word, I think reverence, but I might, through this book, we might have to think about this through the prayer of being too afraid. But if you reverence something too much, you'll be afraid. So there you go, right? But the fear, frustration, being frustrated, malice, right? Intended to harm, hurt, and confusion. You don't know which way to go. That is caused by racism, the system that puts certain persons on top and others on the bottom in this competition. It says it retards. That means to slow down, right? If you ever play music, retardando literally means to slow down. So if somebody's mentally retarded, that didn't used to be a quip against thee. It used to just be saying something is going on in your mind that causes you to slow down in an area that usually, on average, somebody would be faster in. Right, so I hope somebody doesn't hear that term and think Pastor Kobe's doing some kind of ableist thing or whatever. Right, but anyways, so the fear, frustration, the fear, frustration, malice and confusion that is caused by racism retardando, it causes to slow down or prevent all constructive activity between the people of the known universe. Anything that can build, right, will be slowed down through the prism of racism, white supremacy. So when somebody says, how are we going to build? How are we going to build? You're not going to build as long as you're within the system of racism, white supremacy. Right. Oh, sorry, Elroy, I missed you earlier. Speak when spoken to, answer when you're called, stuff like that. Yeah. Truth with the olive tongue. When given a new heart, this work is therapy for community health. Okay. Right. See, so we got somebody saying we've been tagged for hate speech because I've said a system of white supremacy. I told you this is going to be a system where every day we're going to get tagged. Every day they're going to try to say we're saying something that's blah, blah, right? It is what it is. So I already knew, even though it's not exactly what's in there, but we already know that, we're going to be doing this. So if you're on TikTok, I apologize. We've been restricted. We'll probably be restricted every day. It is what it is. So you guys might have to look for us during the series, during this time, for the next couple of weeks, maybe even to the rest of the year. Like, look for us. Don't look for it to pop up when we're live, because we're going to be getting into some stuff, right? Even that shows a system of racism, white supremacy, where I'm talking about how all are hindered. And somebody says, I don't like that, because then I have to admit there's a such thing as system of racism, white supremacy, and everything, right? All right. So here we go. How you doing, movement? Movement Muse, excuse me. So, all right, next part. There we got. The only form of functional racism that exists among the people of the known universe is white supremacy. Now, this is something that really messes with persons, because we're going through our code. So once again, a white code says that racism has to be given by those who have power. This code is saying that if we're going to talk about racism, white supremacy, the only one that we're dealing with, that's what he's saying here. The only one I'm dealing with in this book, because the only one that has power all over the whole world, everywhere you go, where everybody's fighting against it, even if they are supremacist, everybody fights against racism that is white supremacy, even white folk. Right? Did you catch that? The only racism that exists where everybody has to fight against it, against even those who are so-called the supremacists, are those who are on the top of racism, white supremacy. So he's saying here straight up, we're not going to deal. If you're in this book with us, he says you're not. If you came here looking for any other type of racism be talked about, because that's how they try to change it. Well, black persons could be racist too, not in racism, white supremacy. Right, they already done got us for hate speech, so it is what it is. Right, they already done lied to us, so we just gonna keep it moving. Right, not in racism, white supremacy. No, 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 ma'am, no, sir. Not in this. Right, the only form of functional. So he's going to get into that in this book, by the way. And like I said, we're not going to be able to go over the whole book. I'm trying to throw in as much stuff for you as possible. Right, but hear what I'm saying. The only form of functional racism that exists among the people of the known universe is white supremacy. Because when you say a black persons are into racism. Then somebody goes, see, I was the only white person in the black school, so they call me whitey. They call me this. Okay, in your black school, did they also say that persons were acting too white? Well, yeah. In your black school, did they also treat women disrespectfully? Yeah. Well, in your black school, were you learning the same stuff that you did when you started going to the white schools? Well, no. In your black schools, did they have black teachers? Did a lot of times did they have white teachers teaching you? Well, yeah. And your black school, did persons respect your family and your house, even if you had the same stuff? Did persons think that you lived better because you had a white mom, even if you just had a single parent and she was just as hood or ratchet as the black mamas were? Did they treat your mom with more respect because of the fact she was white? Well, yeah. Okay, then. Well, as much as you want to say that there's right. Remember, the overseers were poor white folk, right? Even if they didn't live as well as the blacks, they still had a higher position. Why? Because of the system of racism, white supremacy. So for the sake of argument, for the sake of study, for the sake of convenience, for this thing, you got to come into the. I'm sorry, if you believe different, that's cool. You have every right to believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just telling you, for the sake of what we're going to be learning, hopefully you came in with a mindset that you recognize from the jump. We're not really on that. We're not really going to be doing. I'm going to make it very clear to you that racism is not something that racism, white supremacy affects white persons as well, so-called white persons. But I need you to recognize from the jump that it is not my responsibility, nor is it my mindset to try and articulate anything trying to tell you how black persons are racist or are having racism against white persons. Because yes, you can say it all you want, but it's not functional. It is a dysfunctional mind. How you doing, Sister Sabrea? Right? I'm not saying white persons don't deal with any bigotry. I'm not saying that white persons have not been affected by the white power structure themselves. I'm not saying that persons who get up high in the white power structure have not been mistaught. Right? I'm not saying that there are not black persons who say that they are more Israel than anybody else, which is true by blood, but they don't live the word the way that some of these white persons do. I'll give you all that. Granted. That being said, though, if you're coming into this waiting for Pastor Kobe to be on some whole, I'm gonna tear us down to make sure that y'all are okay. No, wrong is wrong. I tell y'all this all the time. I've admitted to you things that my father has done and things that if I didn't change in my life, then things I look up to him as well. He can have his falls and he can have his great things. He's still my father. He's still great. He's still the reason why I'm here, and he will always get respect. That being said, I'm not going to deny if there's things that his father did and his father's father and his father's father's father before them, right? You hear what I'm saying? I'm going to admit where we got to get better. So if you came here for me to be like, I'm going to make sure that black persons are further put down so that we can now have a conversation, because if I bring y'all down, I got to bring us down too. No, the things that we need to get better in, we going to do that. That's for us. And the things you need to get better in, that's for y'all. And if you want to join us, then they become the things that you're grafted into that we're going to do. But we're coming through the prism of the kingdom and nothing else. Okay. All right. So the only form of functional racism that exists among the people of the known universe is white supremacy. Right? Next one. The people who have the ability to eliminate racism do not have the will to do so. And the people who have the will to do so do not have the ability. This is it's gonna get tough. Because it's not talking about you just only physically. It's talking about even in your mind. That's why you need a code. Did you catch that? Watch this. The people who have the ability to eliminate racism do not have the will to do so. All right. And the people who have the will to do so do not have the ability. That doesn't just mean the money, because we have the money to do so. That doesn't just mean the land. We have enough land that if we wanted to actually do some stuff, we could. This is talking about we have the will to do so, but the ability, the trade, the craftsmanship, the honor, the infrastructure, our own currency, our own culture, right? That's ability. That makes you capable. But those who have all that and even will deny you some of what is yours to be able to learn more of yourself, they have the ability to eliminate racism. Those are the ones that are on top, but they do not have the will. It is not their will. Okay, next bullet point. Regardless of all that has been said or done, the quality of the relationship or relationships between white people and black people is and has been a total disaster. Uh-oh. See, once again, this is going to hurt a lot of persons. Because look, this whole I got black friends and I got all white friends. I got a bunch of black friends. I got a bunch of white friends. Put that to the side for this conversation for the next couple of weeks. At least maybe even to the end of the year. But put that to the side. I know it's going to hurt you for me to say this. But yes, so-called white persons are part of SOC and we ain't got no problem with you. Love y'all. All right? Can I say that again? So-called white persons are part of SOC and we ain't got no problem with you. Love y'all. And I know y'all love us. The proof is in the pudding. We ain't got to go through this whole thing of you proving and us jumping through hoops to say how much we love each other. All right? We're going to put that to the side. If we be honest, as much as I love y'all and as much as you love me, look at the state of the United States of America and tell me that racism, white supremacy is still not a thing. All right? As much as we love y'all that are in England, and we love y'all, and we're going to work hard. Maybe someday we'll be able to afford to come over there and see all of y'all and have a nice meetup. It's going to be amazing. Y'all amazing. That being said, look around England and tell me if racism, white supremacy doesn't exist. There are some of you that are married that are so-called black persons, so-called white persons. Love to see y'all loving on each other properly. Continue to do so in excellence, in Yah's will, in his name. Amen. That being said, look at the state of marriage around the world and tell me that you're not seeing the effect of racism, white supremacy? You who have so-called mixed children, tell me that they fit in. And as much as you like to act like nobody cares about what color your child is, that's not the truth at all. That's right. We speaking truth, speaking facts. So I'm not trying to say there's no love between us. You already know. I think actions speak louder than words. Y'all already know what it is. Y'all know what time it is. Y'all know how much we love you, right? All right, Pastor Kofi gonna switch this thing up. He gonna make sure that he tell everyone. No, no, no. We're gonna tell the truth. And the truth of the matter is that yes, just because we get along doesn't mean that there's no racism, white supremacy. Because people will try to just use that to justify. I got this many white friends. I got this many black friends. What does that have to do with the entire world? What does it have to do with your entire city? What does it have to do with the way the word is taught? That's right. A half truth is a whole lie. You said the disconnection from the Most High keeps them disconnected from nature and life. Love must be within and let it out. Okay, amen. So you hear what I'm saying? We got to make this here. We're gonna walk heavy. That's right. All right, next one up. Regardless, next bullet point. Regardless of all that has been said or done, the quality of the relationship. Oh, said we just read that. Sorry. Next one. Justice is better than racism. I don't even gotta go over that. Whatever you think justice is, but we just told you what justice is earlier, right? Justice in this book, as far as the book is concerned, is anti-racism, white supremacy. So an anti-racism, white supremacy world is better than a world full of racism. We ain't got to go deep into that. All right. If anybody's against that, you're just in the wrong place for this. All right. As long as racism exists, that's the next bullet point. This is the next bullet point. As long as racism exists, anything said or done by people that is not intended to help eliminate racism and to help produce justice is a waste of time and energy. SOC. I mean, we could make this code part of if you're gonna live on our land or not. I mean, we could copy and paste. I could ask permission and just be like, "Hey, Mr. Fuller, can we just use this when we get on the land? Some of this stuff that you cooking, like, can I might literally just be like, yo, I'm asking permission. I might have to get with some of y'all and see if we can just put this together. You hear what I'm saying? Like this thing right here is powerful. Now, once again, we're not anti-white. We're anti-racism, white supremacy. We're not anti-mixed. We're anti-racism, white supremacy. We're not anti-black. We're anti-racism, white supremacy. Are you digging what I'm saying? You're right. You're picking up what I'm putting down. I want to make sure because there's somebody out there who's going to try to turn this into something different than what it's intended to be. All right. No matter what color you are, there's black folk that are pro-racism, white supremacy. Right? Don't get it twisted. Okay? That's why not all skin folk is kinfolk. Anybody who is not anti-racism, white supremacy, if we're spending any kind of time with them, we're wasting our time. I'm not saying that they can't still be taught. I'm saying if we're telling you straight up, we can show you, if you know for a fact that this thing that you're doing helps promote racism, white supremacy, and we come and we say the word of Yah says different. If we come to you and we say the code says different, if we say to you, we need to be better, and we're still trying our best to make sure we're holding on to something that's still racism, white supremacy, it's a waste of your time and your energy. Right? I don't know if anybody needs to disagree with that. If you do, hey, it is what it is. I don't know. Like I said, this just ain't gonna be for you these next couple weeks. All right. Next bullet point. Each and every victim of racism should minimize the time and effort spent doing anything other than thinking, speaking, and acting in a manner that helps to eliminate racism. Watch this. Let's read that one more again. Each and every victim of racism should minimize the time and effort, energy spent doing anything other than thinking, speaking, and acting in a manner that helps to eliminate racism. In other words, anybody who's been a victim of racism should be putting everything that they can, their effort, into making sure that you promote justice. Beloved, do you hear what I'm saying? I hear y'all when y'all are on some stuff talking about how difficult. I hear y'all when y'all are on some stuff talking about how difficult it is to deal with the racism, white supremacy. Right? I I get you. You're telling me how it's difficult to deal with it. Like the woman who's gone through, or even the man who's gone through something like that, that violation, the child, right? In order for you to speak against it, you have to deal with some of the trauma. And we haven't done a very great work as a society, let alone as a people, and ensuring that we go into the trauma that you've been dealt. So because you're still hurt and minimalized, and now you've been getting that for a long time, and persons even will say stuff to you like, it's your fault that that happened to you. It's your fault that that thing that rhymes with great happened to you. You shouldn't have been wearing that. You shouldn't have been doing. I get it. I get it, right? And so it can be difficult, but you should be some of the first persons. We have to help put a system together that helps you to become some of the best suited persons to go against, because your testimony means more than mine, because my testimony is not connected to the victimization. All right. So just like you might have allies, so to speak, these modern abolitionists who are going through a lot of different things, right? And all these different things, they can try to speak for you all they want, but they haven't been as victimized brutally. Now, all of us have gone through white supremacy, but somebody who was the child of the white supremacist who's against it is not necessarily as strong. They need to speak against it as well. But the person who's been in the ringer, right? You got to speak up for justice, for truth, and for the non-American way. Right. And so you must speak up against it to help eliminate racism and help to establish justice. Each and every person should seek to do this every day in every area activity, because it's, once again, in all activity. Grateful for you as well, Movement Muse. See you later. Shalom, be it. Go at peace. Amen. Go in peace, excuse me. And be in peace all day. Right? This helps to establish justice, and each and every person should seek to do this every day in every area of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. These are, by the way, the things that Mr. Fuller is, once we talked about this already a while ago. Some of you might recall we went over that list, right? And I was saying that was actually got us thinking one day down the road, we're going to go over this as a series, right? That list came from this book, right? We talked about the 9 things that affect us. As a matter of fact, I think those 9 things are posted on Patreon. You have to scroll through quite a bit of stuff to find it, but you can probably find it if you look hard enough, right? But each and every person should seek to do this every day. We should seek to eliminate racism, white supremacy every day in every area of activity, because it's in all areas of activity. And the 9 umbrellas, if you will, the 9 points of the umbrella, if you will, that this falls under, he says these are the 9 that you're going to need to pay attention to. You got to pay attention to in economics. Economically, the ecosystem is part of economics as well, right? But the economy, what are you doing for your people in our economy, right? What's happening in our economy that's going to help us economically as a nation, as a people? Education. You hear what I'm saying? Education. Education. What is it that you're fighting against in the realm of education? When your child goes to school, once again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again, I'll say it over and over again. We have this weird phenomenon that we think because your child goes to a HBCU, all HBCUs, at least as far as what I've researched, I haven't found one that's different. All HBCUs were started by somebody who's not one of you. Your money doesn't go to you if you go to a HBCU, and you're not learning things from your prism just because a black person's teaching it. They're teaching you to still do white or racism, white supremacy. Right? Entertainment. Who are you watching every day? Who are you laughing at? What is it that you try? If I could just get this one role, and then once I get in there, I can do whatever I want. No, once you get in there, you're in a system of entertainment of racism, white supremacy. And when we start our own stuff, y'all don't want to support it. Master P starts our own stuff. And look, I know I get it. He ain't perfect. That ain't perfect model. What I'm saying is that you had somebody who was separate from Hollywood, started the whole thing. Now y'all don't want to, we don't want to go ahead and support it because it doesn't look like theirs. But you put You keep sowing seed. You keep putting into the world. You keep watering the seed. You keep making sure it gets the light and the nutrients that it needs, because eventually it'll become a mighty tree. Once it's a tree, then it'll give you everything a tree wants. But you say, I need to go ahead and get from the tree now. So you keep giving to the Hollywood tree and not the tree that you have for yourself. That just because it's a seed doesn't mean that it's not a tree. A tree is a seed. A seed is a tree. Okay, each and every victim of racism should minimize the time and effort spent doing anything other than thinking, speaking, and acting in a manner that helps to eliminate racism and helps to establish justice. Each and every person should seek to do this every day in every area of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor. Remember, we talked about it a while ago. You got to focus your labor. Where's your labor going? Because all money is labor. The only person that have power are the persons who control labor, where it goes. Willie Lynch had power because he controlled where the labor went. Julius Caesar had power. He controlled where the labor went. Napoleon Bonaparte, he controlled where the labor went. Right? Toussaint Louverture, when they got power. Jean-Jacques de Sillon, when they got power in Haiti, it was because they controlled where the labor went. Right? If you want power, you control where the labor goes. This is why when we come together and I say, hey, by the time we start next year, we want to ensure whether the book is ready to go or not with everybody's information in it. We want to ensure and maintain that starting next year, right? We can start now. Some of y'all been started. We should only be getting stuff unless we just can't, unless it doesn't exist in SOC yet. There's no reason why you should be getting anything outside of SOC or outside of whatever community you say you're part of. Some of you just aren't part of the community. You just say you're black. Right? But even black owned, you got to think to yourself, if black owned ain't really part of a community, then black owned is still giving right back to the same person. You want your money, you want your dollar, you want your ideas, you want your prayers, you want your you want your thoughts, you want your monologues, you want your things that you're putting out there, you want your sermons even, you want your books to circulate amongst your people first. If you can ensure that your book is on everybody's desk, as far as your people are concerned, right? And everybody starts coming around your people and they keep saying, what's that book on your desk? Right? And then let it come through that way. But we keep saying, hey, can I go to y'all? And y'all that don't respect me, will you put my book out to everybody else? That's not how it's supposed to work. Our ideas of being a father, our ideas of being a high value man, right? I can't even, there's some things that Kevin Samuel says that have some, and no offense to him, he's passed away, respect, right? But let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that Kevin Samuel says that is some truth in it. At the same time, though, Kevin Samuel's prism is that the more money I make, the more I should be able to cheat, the more women I should be able to have. So just because you're black, bruh, doesn't, like, that's not how our people think. And don't try to find me, oh yeah, there was this king and there were these kings, and they had a bunch of women. Those persons never liked the fact that they had multiple wives. They dealt with it because they were like, okay, so supposedly if he marries this family, then that means that, our kingdom's growing, so I guess. But we never liked that. And by the way, why don't you talk about the plethora of kings, the overwhelming majority of kings in our culture who only had one, and how when his wife would speak, it was as if the king spoke. Matter of fact, the king might even say something, and if his wife was on purpose enough, she could actually say, "No, scratch what he said. You're actually going to do this." And because she served the will of the Most High and the king who was serving the Most High, the king would step back and say, "Yeah, that actually makes more sense." Right? You don't want to talk about those, but you want to talk about it from a kingdom of what? Something that supports racism, white supremacy. So even though Kevin Samuels, you might have some great things to say, if your system is supporting the high value man who's against our people, I cannot teach what you're teaching as if it's righteous. But we have too many high value men that think like that. Supposedly high value men, but they're prison. You said they also use multiple women as an excuse not to elevate individually or spiritually. Come on, bro. Exactly. Right. Well, watch this. I was thinking about this today. I was looking at I listen, I don't enjoy it, I don't like it, but I study. right? So I study a lot of Corey Holcomb stuff, right? Now he ain't really no leader of any type, anyways. He's just trying to smash as much as possible, and he hates women, right? That being said, and there got to be some self-hatred in there. That being said, though, right? He would tell you I'm way off, blah blah. But watch this. Even with all that, I was listening to him this rising, and Brother Jacob, literally in my soul, in my mind, in my heart, I literally was like, I was listening to him. I said, man, you know what? It's interesting because they were showing some old Kevin Samuel stuff because they used that to bolster their point. And I was like listening, and I was like, man, this dude, it talks about masculinity because he said what masculinity is that guys just want to have sex over and over and over and over and over again, and then when they get old and they finally are tired of dealing with all these women and they just say, okay, I'll stay with one. That's what he said masculinity is. And I said, and I just, as soon as he said it in my spirit, it leapt out. It was like, all these men love to talk about masculinity until it talks about discipline in masculinity. And because of our non-discipline in masculinity, we have now begun to raise generations, because generations will be affected by this foolishness. We've now begun to raise generations. We already have been, but now it's worse with all the stuff in the places that so-called social media has brought us to. And so now we now have generations of little boys who will always be raised to be masculine in the bedroom, but never masculine in discipline. Because even the stuff that you want in the bedroom, right? I'm gonna talk some of this about on Saturday when we do our little stuff. Because there's some stuff I shouldn't say just in case some of our youth catch this, so I won't say it here. But it's always amazing, like all the stuff that you want your woman to do is stuff that you want for her. You think it's because she's undisciplined, but if you know the way the woman's body and mind and soul and heart and her soft era that you want her to be in, if you know the way that works, she will open up to you in the bedroom in all these different ways when you're so disciplined as a man in providing her order and structure and love and security, right? I'm sorry, can anybody hear me on TikTok? Somebody said we're frozen. Are we frozen on TikTok? Can y'all see me? Yes, no, maybe so. Anybody hear me? Yes? Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So there's we say all this stuff. We want our woman to do this, and she want her to do that, and wonder how you doing, brother TJ, and we want our sister to do this and that and all this stuff. But if you would show her love and affection and security, there's things that she will open up to you, even in the sexual arena, if that's what you're only looking for. But you should look to see what she opens up to you in general. Well, a sister that opens up to you, she's gonna open up to you in all ways. But you got to have something, a code, a structure, a love, a heart that provides for her, not just only in finances, but even provides to make sure that her fears, right? Her what she's afraid of, the sorrow that she's had, the relationships where she's seen that men don't do this, the stuff that she saw in her family, stuff that she might have seen with her own daddy. Like, are you willing to sit through those things? Because then she'll begin to, come on, to get to that safe place. Thank you, babe. Right? She'll begin to get to that safe place. But if she don't have a safe place, why would she open up like that? You're just thinking only in the bedroom. What you want as an undisciplined man is you want a sister who's undisciplined, who has literally had the discipline beat out of her. Let me say it the way that y'all want to say it. You don't think of yourself as being abusive in this manner, but let's go ahead and do it like this. You want her to be undisciplined because of what you smashed out of her, what was smashed out of her. You know, like y'all say y'all ain't having sex, you say y'all smashing. Well, when you smashing out of her, you're hoping that you smashing even the fragility out of her. The body's a manifestation of the mind. The body's a manifestation of the spirit coming through the soul. You shouldn't have a woman that you just met and on the first night, she's giving you everything. Even if you're going to go straight to the bedroom, like we obviously are against that in our culture. That being said, your mindset shouldn't be, I'm going straight to the bedroom. And if a woman opens up like that, goes straight to the bedroom, then you got to figure there's a lot of stuff that she's been opened up to or opened up by. She's not disciplined. And if she's not disciplined, she's not going to help you to grow. But a man, in his mind, these men, I don't even know if we would call them, they wouldn't be qualified to be men in our culture. That being said, these unqualified, undisciplined brothers, they want undisciplined sisters, right? And then at the same time, they're mad because they can't discipline the sister, or they can't teach her nothing, or they can't say, hey, this is why we do this. Right? You're supposed to train up your wife, and you're supposed to love her and honor her. You're supposed to pastor her before she gets in front of somebody like me. How you doing, Sister LaCrystal? In twin voice? Right? That's supposed to be you. So you want her to open up and do all this stuff and flip this and put this leg up and blah blah and get in this orifice and da da. And but you don't want to make sure she's open enough to be able to speak her mind. She can't tell you something that benefits you. She can't multiply your stuff, but she's supposed to be undisciplined. If you wanted to be undisciplined, and see, I know I used to say this, and I get what it means, but I haven't said this in a while because although this is what a man wants, it's not feasible, right? When you said you want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed, a lot of y'all only get that from Ludacris, but that existed way before Ludacris, right? But y'all heard that saying, you want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. But real talk, if she's not qualified as a wife, right? If she's qualified as a wife in the street, she's qualified as a wife in the bed. And if you won't take care of the wife in the street, then why is it that now she's supposed to be taking care of you in the bed? It doesn't make sense. It's folly. How you doing, Bud Operator? It's folly. It's foolish. It's ludicrous. That's why he said it. You know, ludicrous means crazy, right? You hear what I'm saying? Well, you know how I feel about ladies and gentlemen, but some of y'all, that's a whole nother thing, right? To each their own with that word usage. I get why persons use it, but hear what I'm saying, right? So you need that. So I'm gonna leave that alone. We'll talk about that more on the Zoom thing or on Saturday, right? But we need to make sure we comprehend how to combat this in different areas. So we're looking to combat this in all these areas, in economics, education, entertainment, labor. Watch this, law. You know, the lawless are into racism and white supremacy. Salah. Yeah, I said it. I'll say it again. The lawless are into racism and white supremacy. If you don't want to follow no law, watch this. Because only somebody that believes that certain persons should be so high up that they can get away with whatever they want, and everybody else is too low down, so they shouldn't get away with whatever they want. That's the same thing. Only persons would make up a law in your taxes that says that because you make so much money, here it is tax law, right? Because you make so much money, you should actually have more tax breaks than somebody who makes less, right? Even the idea of passive income. Their laws say that if I can have enough money to where I'm not even the one responsible for making me the money anymore, I shouldn't be taxed on it because I control the labor. Remember, we just said, control the labor, you control all the other stuff. He's controlling the labor, he's controlling the law. That's wicked. I know you don't believe. That's wicked, though. Think about that, right? You should be against any law or any lawlessness, right? The math ain't mathing. But that's what they want you to believe. You'll go into very Eurocentric. I don't even want to say Eurocentric only, right? Let's just call it, racism, white supremacy. A very racism, white supremacy mindset that has you believing that the person who is forcing the labor should never be taxed. Like that's a law. That's a law that's in place. The math ain't mathing. It's corporate. It's corporate rhetoric. And remember, corporations are artificial persons, and you as a corporation are under the artificial person of the United States Corporation. Many of you listening now, not all of you. But if you look at your corporation, your country you're under, they're doing the same thing. How is it that the more I make, the less responsibility I have? Is because the persons who control your labor control your laws. You should want to be anti anything like that. Should you not? Does it make sense for you to not to fight for that? Right? That's what you've been taught, is to fight for it. But does it make sense for you to fight for that? For you to have the opportunity to do that to others? Right? Do you really want that to be done unto others as it's done unto you? Do you want that to keep happening to you? Or do you want to fight against it? One of the things that we should recognize and realize very quickly is that all of us should be anti-racism, white supremacy, because it affects all. And if it affects one, it affects all. See, if racism and white supremacy is taken care of, this is what they meant. Even though Black Lives Matter is actually controlled by LGBTQ plus groups who are into racism and white supremacy, they kind of flip that on you, right? That being said, though, like I get that. Yeah, I'd be the first person to tell you, yeah, Black Lives Matter, and I get what's meant, and that actually is intelligent. It's true to realize that if one group of persons' lives don't matter, then no lives truly matter. Because if one group's not, especially if we want to go to the Negro place being grafted in, etc., they didn't even talk about that portion of it because many of them don't even support that. That being said, though, right, anybody who's part of our chain should be protected. All right, let's keep on moving. Let's keep it moving. Next part that we should be is it's in politics. I don't even know if I have to even go deep into that. I think you just look at what's been happening for the last year with politics, and anytime somebody's trying to be voted in, or trying to win a spot from a sheriff all the way up to the president of the United States of America, you're dealing with racism, white supremacy being on the docket. Either somebody says they're for it or they're against it, and both of them are attached to the same bird of racism, white supremacy. Because as long as you're running for anything that's governed by the world, then the whole world is subject to racism, white supremacy. Somebody's got to be up, somebody's got to be down, and usually they're trying to guarantee what's going to be lighter folks are up and darker folks are down. I don't know if you're somebody that's against that. Do some research, do some reading. Love you too much to argue that with you because you're not going to look very great in that argument. Next one up, religion. We already talked about that. I don't even think I need to go over that again. We talked about that earlier. Where do you think overseers come from? White gloves, putting your finger in the air, right? Why is it that why is there even a such thing as a black church? If you believe that all your churches are really what they're supposed to, why have you had to separate and have black churches? Why did you have to separate and have a black Southern Baptist conference? Why do you have to separate and have a black Western conference? Why do you have to have a Kojic conference? Is the Kojic conference considered to be white church or black church? Come on now, right? We ain't got to go through all that, Whereas there an AME. I mean, I don't have to go any deeper. All right, next one up, sex. We just kind of talked about that, right? White racism, right? Racism, white supremacy. A lot of you who've even heard stuff like the missionary position came from white missionaries that were sent to places, and they would tell persons that had sex in any other positions that it wasn't holy unless they did it like that, because that's what they were doing where they came from. Even in your sexual activity, white supremacy or racism, white supremacy. Y'all who are into having persons locked down on bondage. There's persons that get in relationships and they role play as whether it's the white woman or the white man and the black person or the black man or the black woman, and they be role playing and stuff, talking about this or blah blah, or men talking about you like this N-word blah blah, and white women talking. Then sometimes even white women not even the one to say it, but the black man being so messed up in his mind, call me the N-word. It's not just only on the white side. Everybody's affected by it. It's stuff that comes from buck breaking, chattel slavery. It's stuff that comes from straight up grape soda, right? How you doing, Henry? How you doing, Gwinnett? These are things that we don't like to talk about, but it's real. It's real talk. Okay. So the law, politics, religion, sex, and yes, even war. War is based off of racism, white supremacy. Guess what? Even wars that ain't got nothing to do with so-called white persons are still do, because the persons who are giving you the weapons, where do you think the weapons come from? It is twisted, baby. Right? Where do you think the weapons come from? Right? I'm gonna be quick on this one. I'm gonna rewind just a little bit. Right? Let's rewind just a tiny bit. You're talking about even sex. Who do you think owns music that's hypersexualized? Racism, white supremacy. Who do you think owns I don't know, what's the name of these places? Like Pornhub and stuff like that y'all be watching this stuff on? And I don't even remember the names from back in the day. Whatever all that stuff, Playboy, uh, whatever the guy's name was that was in the wheelchair. I forget what the name of his thing was. They used to have just outright disgusting stuff, like like you should just find it disgusting even describing stuff, jugs and all this stuff, right? Hustler, thank you. All that stuff. Like, who do you think owns that? And so anybody, whether white or black or in between, anybody that's put in there, right? Larry Flint, thank you. That's the name of the guy, right? But anybody who's put in those magazines, what do you think the prism is coming through? Anybody, any woman, or if it's play, wasn't there a playgirl and men were putting that, whatever, anything that you're looking at is coming through the prism of somebody else's culture. And you should therefore be willing to do whatever it takes to eradicate it. Right? Especially you've been victimized by it. You were victimized by it when it was put on you when you were so young and you shouldn't have known what it was. And now here it is that you're trying to look at it and don't even realize. That was my story. Right? Somebody in the family has it. You get your hands on it. Next thing you know, even before you can even climax, you're watching this stuff over and over again. It's only a matter of time before you can find the climax and everything comes together. Boom. Now you're dealing with, decade plus, really 2 decades of whatever. Right? You should be trying to eradicate that system, or at least bare minimum separate from it, and make sure that when you separate from it, see, I've talked about this before, whenever you talk about deliverance, never forget that true deliverance means that I'm separated from it. There's this sermon Yahweh gave me a long time ago, and it was called the 3 Ds. First D was defeat, second defeat was destroy, third D was deliverance. And it talks about how King David, or well, not at the time King David, he was anointed king, but was not king yet. And how David comes to feed his brothers as his father requested, and they're at battle. The Philistines are on the other side, the Israelites are here. He shows up and he realizes that they're afraid to fight against Goliath. And Goliath is up there saying what he's saying against Israel. And so David's response is, who is this uncircumcised? He's a little teenager, but he's like, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is this unlawful man talking trash about us? And he runs to the king and he tries to tell his brothers, why ain't y'all fighting today? He's like, man, whatever, just get out of here, give us our food, get out the way. You little, you don't know nothing about this. He goes to King Saul, and King Saul's looking at him and he's like, King Saul, let me fight, blah blah. And he tries to give him his armor. He can't even put it on. He takes those he takes those 5 smooth stones, etc. And he goes and he fights, and when he hits him, and by the way, I was just watching a video with Solomon about how you actually use the sling. I was like, boy, when somebody know what they're doing with that sling, I want to learn. Because when you know how to use that sling for real, I mean, that thing is, it's doing damn, like I was watching this guy knocking over like pieces of huge rock, like literally having like rock walls fall down because he was hitting it so hard. Right? And so he went and did all that and came around, he did like a thing where he twisted his whole body, came around one time and then threw it and hit the whole thing fell down. And I was like, ooh, that was Goliath's head. I mean, that's like a bullet. If you know how to really launch that thing. That was a sling, a person with a sling, that was like a bullet. It's like somebody shooting you with I can't say the word, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? It was like a bullet. My man, so he hit him, and he hit him in his head. It was over at that point. He got a shot to the head, right? And David hit him with that force. He defeated him. Everybody already shot, but then David's still running. While everybody shot, David's still running up. And everybody, what's going on? David's still, he focused. He grabs the sword, and he chops off Goliath's head. Bow! He destroyed. Ain't no chance now. Right? He was defeated. I mean, I probably could, but at this point, I'm trying to. They have already, they've already on TikTok today. They've already made it to. They said I'm talking too much about hate. They said I'm talking hate speech. So it is what it is, right? But I'm trying to still allow a person to come on if they want. But anyways, so he then runs and chop off the head. Right? So first things first. So that's a lot in there already, right? So David first, the 3 Ds, right? He first he defeats, he destroys, and but then there's deliverance after, right? So he defeats Goliath. He's already hit him with a sling, bow, headshot, falls back. Then he running up. Well, everybody's just like, oh wow, he defeated him. David like, I ain't finished. Goes and grabs the sword, bow, chops off his head. He's destroyed. Right? Now what happens after that? So he's defeated Goliath. He's destroyed Goliath. Right? Now what's the next thing? He defeated Goliath. He destroyed Goliath. But now deliverance happens. Well, what happens after that? It's that the Philistines then were like, yo, it's over. And they start running. It's done. If Goliath can get beat by little David, that's what they're thinking in their mind. If young David has enough power in him to defeat Goliath, had no armor, Didn't even have a sword or anything. He just took a sling and that was it. Now, by the way, was David the only person in Israel who had the ability to use a sling? Of course not. right, right. But all these cats, all they could see was Goliath's size and the fact that somebody was going to go one on one. But hey, everybody could have used a sling. Anybody could have stepped up. But when you're so in fear, like we talked about before, when you're so in fear or you're so anxious about a system, when you think that this is a giant that you can't defeat, you've already made up your mind that you can't do something differently. Just because Goliath is has a sword and is holding a spear and is probably holding his shield doesn't mean that that's the only way you got to fight him. Study your enemy's tactics, but don't act like your enemy's tactics have to be yours. That's a little side piece for somebody. Somebody caught that. But anyway, so he defeats him. He destroys him. He ain't coming back. But then this is the part where we mess up, and when it comes to deliverance, the Philistines are running. But don't get it twisted. If you let your enemy get away now, if you just let them get away with it, if you ain't got nothing in you, if you just say, well, one's defeated, one's destroyed, they scared, they ain't coming back, and you don't make sure that you prepare to make sure it doesn't come back again, and replace it with something else, you're gonna be jacked up. So the Israelites now seeing their enemy on the run and seeing what little David did, gird themselves up in courage, and they run after the Philistines and they slaughter them. Why? Because at some point, just because your enemy ran away now doesn't mean that they won't come back stronger. And maybe next time they won't say, let's do a one-on-one. So you know what? We got to get rid of them. And they ran, they took them out. Right? They were delivered when there was no more enemy left, and they replaced it with, so you got to replace, you can't just defeat, you can't just destroy, you got to get delivered. You got to replace, you got to get rid of that enemy and make sure it's replaced with something of peace, of shalom. And many of us are not willing to do all that. Many of us are just saying, man, you know what? That's really cool. We defeated it. It was destroyed. It was this. No. You got to defeat. You got to destroy. And then deliverance comes when literally, like, you can live different. De-live. De-live. You live in this way. De-live that. Did you catch that? De-live. Deliverance. De-live. You live in a certain way. You living in fear. Your enemy makes you live a certain way. You always have feeling like you got to go to war. You can't be in your soft area. You can't trust women. You can't blah, blah. You got to de-live that. What you willing to do? How's the fight going to go? What are you ready to do? And when you take out one, just because you taking out the main one doesn't mean somebody stronger can't come back. Don't come back till you finish the deal. That's deliverance. You hear what I'm saying, beloved? That's deliverance. You got to defeat, you got to destroy, you got to then deliver or be delivered. If you get to that point, then that's when we having a better conversation. Many of us are not having that conversation. Many of us, that's not what you're trying to do. Your enemy is coming back and waxing you over and over and over again because you haven't made sure that you put something in place of it. So even when it comes to sexually, right, you're going to have to be delivered. You're going to have to put something in place so that your enemy can't come back into those same zones. Can I be honest with you? One of the reasons why I have the practice and the habit of study and stuff as much as I have is not just because I'm preaching all the time, but it's because I used to have so much time on my schedule that even when I thought I was over with the prom thing, even when I thought I was over with that being hypersexualized or hypersexualizing persons online, I had too much time. It was going to come back. I had 3 hours left and I still was addicted. Like sometimes I know some person just go, I pray about it. I did this. I did it cold turkey. It doesn't happen for me. Right? I have to give myself other things to do. I have to make sure there's no space for the enemy to return, because if they return, they're going to take over. I know my weaknesses as much as I know my strengths. I know some of y'all talk about your strengths. I know my weaknesses just as much as I know my strengths. And Yahweh is my strength. So I put a lot of Yahweh in places where my weaknesses used to have more time. My strength now has more time. And my strengths have too much time for my weaknesses to continue to develop. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Right? So you can't just, there's some things you can't just defeat. It's great, defeat it. That's step one, though. So defeat that thing, but then you got to destroy it. Cut that thing's head off. But that's just the head of the serpent. That's the head of the body. You know, the chicken's body. The chicken body can still run around. You know, matter of fact, there was a chicken who somebody chopped their head off, and somebody was still able to feed. They had to clean out the neck or whatever, but the body kept moving even after the head was chopped off. They would just make sure it was fed, and the body would still move around. Would still be able to follow other chickens and stuff like that. Would bump into things, but have to correct. But it still lived, and it was only one day when they forgot to clean its stuff out one day, and that it went too many hours without being cleaned out. But I think it survived something like 2-3 months. Right? Like you can, if you just because you cut off the head of the serpent doesn't mean that if somebody doesn't feed the head of the serpent doesn't mean that it won't move anymore. It's a freakish sight. What the first time I was over, I had it used to be like my father's best friend and stuff back in the day, and was also my family physician. And so he was my pediatrician, and we would go over his house from time. Well, not that often. I think I went like 2 or 3 times my whole life, but we saw him all the time because we saw him at the place, and we played with their children a few times, and even went to their house, and they had a huge farm, right? And first time I ever saw, the only time I think I've ever seen a chicken straight up, get their head chopped off, at least in front of me, was that time when I was a little child, and I came in, and it was like the thing was coming down, and then the chicken started running and blood squirting and stuff, but chickens moving, So that was my first time. I wasn't raised on a farm like that. Definitely wasn't raised around slaughtering animals. So it was like that was a very jolting thing for me, And I wasn't supposed to be up yet. And she was preparing, food for the day for all of us, right? But and all that being said, like things can have life even after the head is chopped off. So don't be on this thing where it's I defeated it and I destroyed it. You got to be delivered. You got to put something in place. You said your children saw it in Jamaica and freaked out. Yeah, I mean, but you got to put something in place. You got to recognize that something will be put in place, or that thing is still alive. Just because you don't see the head anymore doesn't mean it's not alive. And by the way, we talking about spirituality, right? Remember, it even tells you in Revelation chapter 13, it talks about how one of the heads of the beast, which is the government, says one of those heads was defeated. It looks like it should have no life, and yet, even though it was slaughtered and it has a wound on the head that says that it shouldn't be alive, somehow it's still alive. You got to see the power of your enemy. Some of you don't know how powerful your enemy really is. That some of your enemies are still alive. You swear that because you destroyed it, that in the spirit you delivered, and that thing has had time to recuperate. It's other heads that you didn't even think about, the other things that it comes from. You haven't destroyed it, so those are still around long enough. So now here it comes. You didn't make sure you destroyed them too for deliverance. You just destroyed one, right? So you're not quite as delivered as you may think. A lot of persons into the Bible. That happens to us quite a bit. So we have to make sure that we're stronger in some of those areas. All right, and then the last one we said was war, right? War, racism, white supremacy involved in war, right? You can see that clearly in front of us. A lot of persons might not believe so, but it's clearly in front of us that we see these things, right? So we're looking at this book, The United Independent Compensatory Code /System/Concept, a textbook /workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. All right. So that's what we're going to be coming out of for these next few weeks. We're still not finished for today, but just wanted to make sure that you guys got that. So you guys seeing what we're saying as far as this, you catching, the instance and why this is necessary, why a book like this is necessary, why a mindset like this is necessary, why a thought process like this is necessary. It's vital for us as a community to recognize that we are in fact in dire need for things like this. We must recognize this, and thank you for that. If you'd like to support us, even in donations and stuff given to the community, or even if they're given to our family, or 5 to 10, or whatever the things we have, Y'all's Name Project, etc. Thank you for doing so. If you like to, if you feel led to. So in all these things that we're talking about, here's something. Here's a quote from Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. He's quoted saying this in 1971, so he's been around a minute. As far as I know, he's still alive. Right? He's been around a minute though. He said, if you do not understand white supremacy, or if you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. That's a lot, isn't it? Right? I'm gonna say that for one more again. He says, if you do not understand white supremacy or racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. If you don't comprehend what the system is based on, then how you gonna walk around with no confusion? And remember, he said, if you don't understand, remember, we know what that word understand means. That means if you don't know the standard that you're under, right? If you don't know the standard that you're under, then what you gonna get, right? And confusion is of the enemy. Exactly. So if racism, white supremacy is in everything, right? Especially if we're talking about major change, things that cause major change. Recall, right? He already put this in such a manner in which when persons try to hit us with some of those same go-tos they go to, that go-to ain't as powerful as Goku, right? It's not going to mess with us, right? That go-to ain't really going to do nothing for us. We've already seen what this stuff is. Okay. And by the way, in this book, there is no in the book index. So all the materials are in there. So let me read what they put in here. All material in this work is closely interrelated. Some material presented in one place may appear to contradict or not coincide with material presented in another place. A substantial number of suggestions presented in one place may appear in another place. Some viewpoints expressed in one area of activity may be repeated in another area of activity. It is best for a person to read this work thoughtfully and carefully and read it at least once in its entirety. So we're not going to be doing this here. We're not putting in that work for you. So there's some things that some of us will comprehend because we've gone through the book. And there's some things that some of you might be like, I'm still confused. Why are you saying this? Yada, yada, yada. This doesn't make sense. Sounds like you're a racist, blah, blah, blah. And there's certain things that, as much as y'all know I love to circle around on certain things, there's some things that just book-wise, just keeping it, but I'm not going to be able to. And even if I did, it might even confuse you more. This is a book that I'm going to do my best to kind of go against what it says we should do. But this needs to be presented to you, right? Because if we did this, some of y'all would, if I be honest, if I were to go through this book once again, the United Independent Compensatory Code System, or code/system/concept by Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., or by Neely Fuller Jr., excuse me, I keep calling him doctor, by Neely Fuller Jr. If I were to go through that book, word upon word, line upon line, precept upon precept, it probably, if we wanted to really do this properly, I need at least a year of going through this. And I'd probably lose some of y'all because some of y'all, as much as I'm not saying this makes you bad, I'm just saying it makes you a human being. Hearing about racism, white supremacy, racism every day, even though you live through it every day, but hearing about it every day probably is a subject matter that would turn many of you off and be like, okay, Pastor Kofi just focused on white people too much. Right? So I'm not going to go through this in its entirety. There's some work that you should put forth on your own, which, by the way, you should always do. Study to show yourself approved, that you'll be a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You should always make sure that you're studying anything that I'm talking about. Amen. Anything that I'm talking about. Don't just be listening to stuff because Pastor Kofi said, right? I'm just saying, like, make sure that you're going through this stuff properly. All right. So I'm putting that in there because I want to make sure that you guys are aware that at some point you guys should go through this stuff on your own. At it, you should make sure that you're reading it. You should make sure that you're looking at all the different pages, right? I'm going to go through some of it with you all. We're going to focus on certain parts of it. Okay. All right. We're still doing a little bit of intro. We did our official intro on Tuesday, but we're still using today somewhat to introduce some of this. So we're going to go through some more bullet points here. Right after the table of contents, if you're turning in the book, if you have it, I'm going to go to the bullet points that are right after the table of contents. Okay. So make sure you're putting in work. Right? I sincerely mean that. There's too many of us. I sincerely mean put in work. Always study. I don't care who it is, including myself. Right? There's too many of us that are always getting something from somebody else or getting something through somebody else. We're always listening to what somebody else said on YouTube. I don't care who it is. Me. I don't care what ministerial staff. I don't care if somebody that you think is better than me. How you doing, Sister Taya? Whatever is telling you do this, do that. Right? Always make sure that you put in work and study for yourself. Always, because there's stuff that I'm gonna say that you're gonna disagree with. It is what it is. Right? Prayerfully, they're minor things, and we can still be brother and sister. But yeah, I'm gonna say some things that's gonna mess with you some. That's okay. That's okay. Right? I might say some things that you know better than I, and I just can't see it yet. I might say some things that I know better than you, and you can't see it yet. We might just be polar opposites in certain manners, certain way, certain manner, etc. And it's hard for us to get on the same page. Right? But study everything. Study everything. And with the goal of us getting back to being one body. Right? Right? Interdependence under Yah. That comes with it. Sometimes there's disagreement. Sometimes you're not gonna like something I say. So there's persons, if y'all remember a long time ago, we had an argument that popped up where there was a sister and she was saying all this stuff about being romantic, and I was telling y'all romance is not kingdom. And I was telling y'all what y'all was saying. The sisters was, and there's some of y'all that still disagree with what my thought process on it. But I came to you and I was like, look, if we're gonna keep these words and keep these things above, she's telling you things that are romantic, right? But some of these things are not necessarily kingdom. Y'all remember we went through that? That was a little while ago. And I was like, yo, she's saying some things that are romantic, but they're not kingdom. Like Roman antics, you're looking at some of these things that she's asking for. And I get that some of the stuff that she's saying is true. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of steps missing in that. And there's a lot of things that she's asking that are not necessarily what Yah wants you to believe in. But we had a whole thing. Now, some of us still disagree on that. Right. That being said, there's some that have said, you know what? Actually, now that I see what you're saying, I see what the word said, blah blah. I can see what you were going for. There's some of you that say I don't agree, but I see what you mean. Okay, like whatever. But we're gonna have some disagreements, but study everything. Right? I don't believe I'm the end all be all of anything. That's why I need to come out of this. This needs to be the end all be all, and I believe we need to go into how it's supposed to be interpreted in its original form. Right? That's always my goal. So even in this book that we're going through, I'm still going to make sure that we're students through the prism of Yah. We can't use somebody else's reality for what Yah says is real. Alrighty. So, all right. The purpose of this book, once again, the book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System, a code/system/concept, written by Neely Fuller Jr. Okay, that's what we're going into for today. All right. And it says the purpose of this book: to present material in book form which can be used as a basic guide for those individual non-white persons who are the victims of racism or white supremacy, and who may wish to think, speak, and or act to eliminate racism or white supremacy, and do so not as a formalized group, but as individual persons. Now, this part, I'll be honest with you, I think that that's impossible, but I get what he's saying, because there's no such thing as an individual outside of a group. But everything else, I would say I 100% agree. All right. Is that we have the ability to come out of this. Right. He says that's the purpose. Now, he's saying this has to be as an individual because he, in his experience, says, hey, I've seen Christians try to do it. I've seen Muslims try to do it. I've seen Black Muslims try to do it. He said he said before he's seen atheists try to do it. He said he believes in the Creator. Right? He doesn't know who that Creator is, what God is, yada, yada, yada. But he's saying he's writing this for us to come out. I would tell you that you can't separate an individual from a society or a society from an individual. Right? If you're going to separate, this is why it's always important in separating, you still must make sure you have a group that you're with. He would beg to differ. Right? So we're going to be honest about stuff, right? Like honest about differences. I told y'all we're going to do that in this series. We should always be honest about differences and keep culture and keep truth to what somebody's actually formulating in their mind or their opinion. All right. Next thing up, he says, as a purpose of this book, to present material in book form which can be used as a start. Used as a start for a complete code of thought. So he says this is not the code. He says I'm trying to start conversation that we can have a complete code of thoughts, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which are non-white people, which, when promoted by an effective number of individual victims of racism, will result. So I want to go back real quick to what he's saying earlier, right? I want to go back real quick to what he's saying earlier. Well, I'm sorry, let me finish this up. Effective of individual victims of racism will result in a collective effect against racism. So the goal he's talking about is justice. Justice. Justice is not for some, justice is for all. However, I hope you catch this part. Justice is not for some, justice is for all. Right? However, if it's true justice, then it means that we shouldn't do it to somebody else. Can I just throw that out there? Did you catch that? So our justice doesn't look like we're going to do to others what they did to us. Right? Right? Our justice is we do unto others as Yah, or says, we do unto others as we want done unto us. So if justice for us is admit when you're wrong, admit when you're wrong. Okay? If justice for us is you shouldn't have hung us, then we're not trying to hang you. If justice for us is you shouldn't have done that to our women, then we're not trying to do that to your women. You catch that? Right? That's justice. Justice is anti, in this book, in this code, justice is anti racism, white supremacy. All right? Justice for us is what? Justice for us is anti white supremacy. That's right. Don't worry about, thank you. That's a great way of saying it. Don't worry about being equal, which is, by the way, a myth. When my wife and I understood we're not equal, we realized that she does things better and I do things better. And we put it together, we are interdependent upon each other, and then allow Yahashua to come in there as well, Yahweh to come in there as well, Elacham to come in there as well. Threefold cord, not so easily broken, Holy Spirit led. All of a sudden we get to this place where we recognize, oh, we powerful for real now. Because it's not only what Kofi does, it's not only what Amma does, but put us together, we unstoppable. Right? So we recognize the power and the strength that each other have. Right? We're not equal. Right? We're not equal. She's different than I. Right? But we want to be better for ourselves, better as individuals, because individuals as a society become better together. Right? So I want you to recognize that point. I want you to see that point. I want you to hear that. I want you to catch that there's a lot of persons who are thinking that I'm coming from a place, and a lot of persons into so-called, or well, not in so-called, those into racism, white supremacy, who would try to tell you, see, they're just going to try to do unto us what we did unto them. What do you want? What do you want from us? Why do you want? Because in their mind, all they can think is what they did and what they still do and what they're going to continue to do. I don't want anything to do with that system, right? I want to be left alone. I want to be left alone with those that are like-minded, and I want to love those, right, who love Yah. Because if they love Yah, they'll love me, because they'll see the Yah in me, and then we'll exalt Yahweh together. Okay? So, but for you have to recognize somebody who's been raised in racism, white supremacy, as a so-called white person, right? If they've been raised to even believe there's a such thing as that, then a lot of this is going to sound like I'm trying to tear them apart. But if I tear the system apart and you're not part of the system, this has nothing to do with you anymore. And that messes with persons when you speak, when you tell them the truth like that. If I'm the only reason why a person would be upset, for example, the only reason why somebody who's mad is like for example, do you know the Bible? I know you're not going to hear this. But as far as the Bible's thought process on a relationship, there is a patriarch and there is a matriarch, right? But if we be honest, the father, the masculine, when you're talking about spirit, or the male, the man, when you're talking about flesh, is supposed to make sure that he ensures the protection of the family. So a patriarchal structure is integral to a biblical home. See, but watch this. But if we're talking about, but that's kingdom patriarchy. What you're doing is confusing patriarchy that's Eurocentric, or patriarchy that is LGBTQ plus, or patriarchy that is anti-biblical rhetoric, or patriarchy that's for racism, white supremacy, and trying to put it in the prism of kingdom patriarchy. Right? When you pray, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," that's kingdom patriarchy. There's a difference. There are matriarchs in the kingdom. There are patriarchs in the kingdom, but it is a patriarchy if you're saying that the way it's supposed to work is that husbands must be true kingdom husbands. We got to be careful though, because we have to be freed from a system that says we're trying to do everything the way that they are. This is why some of our sisters have fallen for the rhetoric that says, "Hey, don't be in the kingdom. You know they're a patriarchy." Well, yeah. If you want me to protect you, then I have to be in a position where I'm allowed to protect you. Right? But in the kingdom, we don't abuse you, abnormally use you. I know that's tough. That's tough. A lot of person, that's a hard pill to swallow. But I'm not in the worldly patriarchy. I know in the worldly patriarchy, they trying to get you to believe it's okay for them to do whatever they want. Right? Watch this. Okay, it is what it is. I told you it's gonna be a rough one. Sisters, do you believe that if a man, let's have a bill, can we have a, let's have king, let's do kingdom sense, not common sense. Some of y'all, this is y'all too common in your sense, or you still being part of a patriarchal structure that's not kingdom. So I already know where some of your minds are going to go when I ask this question. But sisters, do you believe, I don't even know how to say this because it's difficult without y'all being right in front of me and us talking, right? But I'm gonna just say the first part. I'm not gonna ignore your answers, but I'm gonna just throw some stuff out there. Hopefully, catch what I'm doing, sisters. I hope that you haven't fallen for the okie doke that a man, you're a husband, a patriarch, a real kingdom man, telling you that you should not have that A word that rhymes with extortion. I hope that you don't believe that's a man telling or controlling your body. If so, you fell for the okie doke, right? Um, your husband's supposed to, now watch this. If you have a husband, first of all, then you shouldn't be impregnated by anybody but your husband. I would hope you recognize that. That's a big part of the argument that we missing, right? So it's like if you have a husband, right? Then your husband should probably have say so in the seed that you allowed to be impregnated by. Watch this. I know you don't want to hear it this way. I'm not trying to be anti-woman. I'm trying to be kingdom minded. If my spiritual husband, Yahweh, impregnates something in me, then he has a right to tell me how to make sure that I carry it through the manifestation so that he can protect the gift in me. I know you don't want to hear it because you're trying to separate. Your flesh is saying something different about this. Right? But if my spiritual father, if Yahweh told me that, right, through Holy Ghost, right, like Mary was impregnated by Holy Spirit, but it was with the seed of the Father that the Son might come forth, right? Okay, so if Holy Ghost impregnates me because Yah has sent a messenger, right? Yah sent a messenger, and the messenger said, "Hey, will you accept this teaching called Neely Fuller and Code? It's going to come out of the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept, and a lot of persons aren't going to like it, blah blah. But will you accept this teaching? Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to do it this way, or whatever? Are you ready to study, God?" And I'll say, "Okay, let it be done unto me. Amen, amen." Right? And I get impregnated with that, then that means that everything that I'm doing to prepare to give this manifestation to you, it means that everything I'm doing is according to the will of the one who impregnated me with this word. Right? Now, if you believe that, that means that he's controlling, well, you know what? In a sense, he is in control, but I have something called free will. But if I'm going to be married to the one who's going to deposit seed, then he should have a say so over this seed, zara, this word. It's the same word for word is the same word for seed. If he puts this word in me, then first of all, I have to know, do I love him? Do I cherish him? Do I want him to be in my life? Do I want him to raise this child? I shouldn't be having a child with somebody that I'm afraid to allow them to speak life over what they put in me. He gave the life, the gift inside me. That's a big part of what's missing, is that we're not even talking about you're not ready for marriage, because children are supposed to be the result of marriage. If you're not ready for marriage, then you're not ready for what marriage brings. It's not a control thing, but even if you want to call it that, it's because the one that has impregnated me with something has the ability to make sure that I'm going to multiply it so that it can be used for. I know you don't want to hear this, sisters, but I'm going to say what you say about the word, because you said your husband's supposed to be like Christ. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25, love your wives as your husband loved the assembly and gave himself for it, and washed by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious assembly. So if you say that's what your husband's supposed to do, then don't forget about this part of the word, because guess what's supposed to happen? Next part of the word, right? He comes in, he impregnates me, he does all this stuff, and he puts something in me, and I'm going to multiply it, and I give it out so that it might be of his tabah, or his constitutional pleasure. I'm I told you this ain't gonna feel that great, but it's real. If that's your husband, the kingdom husband, Yah has entrusted you with him, and you're doing what Yah says. Well, okay, all right. If that be your husband, praise Yah. If that be your husband, praise Yah. And you've gone through all the stuff properly, praise Yah. All right, cool. If that's your husband and he's depositing something in you, he should have a say on what he's going to protect and what he's going to make sure is right. You're multiplying, you're going to feed it. You're going to operate, it's going to be right. You're going to have a huge part to do with it, but he's the protector, is he not? He's also supposed to show love, is he not? He's also going to make it easier for you, is he not? So the two of you working together, yeah. So there's things that you get to say and things to do and things to move in, and he'll have your back no matter what. But don't forget that he's still the father of what you've born. Right now, this is difficult to talk about sometimes because I'm not even going into what happens if y'all split. I'm talking about Yah's will. I see you, Minister Shante. Right, I'm just saying it's Yah's will. Do not take the life of your children for fear of not being able to provide. Yahweh already has sustenance. Amen. All right. Okay. All right. I said enough on that. Y'all got what we need to get out of that. Praise Yah. All right. Let's keep on going. Next purpose of this book, or part of the purpose of this book, says to present material in book form that may serve as a basic guide and or general format for making of other books, which can serve as a complement and or a supplement to the codified and or systematic concept of eliminating racism, white supremacy through the thought, speech, and or action of individual persons by their own will at a time and place of their own choosing. So I love that part because it's free will. In essence, I haven't written this book and to try and get on you. At the end of the day, I've written this book because you will come to a place to where at some point you'll realize these things are actually happening every day. How you doing, Eddieville? How you doing, Prince Nasheen? Right? He said, I'm writing this because you will come across this, and that when it's time for you, right, this is to help you when you get to where you're going. All right. Next bullet point, it says to help any and all persons to know and or understand truth, and to use truth in such manner as to produce justice, which is what anti-racism, white supremacy, and correctness at all times, in all places, in all areas of activity. Because why? Because racism, white supremacy is in all areas of activity. All right. Next bullet point, to explain the necessity of eliminating functional racism before attempting to make any other major changes in the socio-material activities of the people of the known universe, and to function as a general guide toward doing so. This is not a book to be used to promote dislike or hatred for white people. This is not a book to be used to encourage animosity towards white people, or to promote a dislike for white people because of their whiteness, or because they appear to be white to the eye or mind of the onlooker. This is not a book. See, now I'm going through the knots. This is not. So y'all catching this so far? Right? This is not. We're not teaching this. The purpose of this book. So what I'm teaching is not purpose to say we hate white people. If you came here for that, you came here for the wrong purpose. For the next couple weeks, however long this lasts, I am not coming here every day to try and put white people on blast. This is about the system of racism, white supremacy. If there are white persons who decide to not be part of those people who want to be white supremacists, and they decide to leave that system and be grafted into something else, then Yah forbid anybody from stopping that. That is Yah's will. It is not his will that any would perish, even those who are so-called white, who have been tricked into that, but that all would have everlasting life. That's right. It's not to teach a new form of racism, black supremacy. This is for us to teach anti-racism, white supremacy, and to have a system that is anti-white supremacy. So it's anti-racism / white supremacy, right? Because even black supremacy is not functional. Remember, we used that term earlier. There's a functional racism. The only functional racism is white supremacy. If you make black supremacy functional, now we got a problem with it. Did you catch that? Everybody on the same page? I'm not losing anybody, right? Nobody trying to say I'm out here Uncle Tom or anything like that, even though it should be Sambo, but you know, right? I'm trying to tell you the fact. Even this book is not supposed to be used to be anti-white. Okay? And if you're using it for that, you're not the author of the book is telling you this. You ain't hip to what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to use it as it says to be used. Amen. Right? If we have things that are against the Bible, I will clearly tell you it's against the Bible. Outside of that, we're going to do what it says. We're going to use it as it says to be used, and we're not going to add stuff or take away stuff. That's the way you should study anything, especially your Bible. Right? Okay, once again, the name of the book is the United Independent Compensatory Code / System / Concept. Like I said earlier, the best way to do it is just look up Neely Fuller Jr., Neely Fuller, Fuller. Look up Neely Fuller Jr., and then type in besides that Neely Fuller Jr. Code or Neely Fuller Jr. PDF. And as soon as you type it up, the first thing that pops up, it does have a lot of ads, right? But you can download it from there, right? Or if you want to do it and not download, because I think if you download it from the first thing that pops up on Google, you have to do a free trial, but it's the same one that I'm gonna be using. So even with all the stuff, I'm making sure for those of you who are looking at ad after ad after ad or all that stuff, I'm doing the same thing you're doing so that we all can be using the same experience. Because I don't want anybody saying that they can't get what I can't get access to, whatever. And it's not my goal to go through the whole book. Remember that, because we can't. We can't do it unless we literally like did this for a year. How you doing, Sister Taylor? If I didn't say so earlier, I think I did. So anyway, let's get back into this. Praise Yah. All right. We got a little bit of time left, only about 10 minutes left. So we'll just do a little bit more. All right. We're talking about this, what the book's not for. This is not a book to be used to embarrass, belittle, nitpick, poke fun at, or otherwise show disrespect for any people, be they white, black, brown, red, yellow, blonde, brunette, etc. This book is not designed to be used to basically oppose any people except those persons racially classified as white, and only those persons so classified who are responsible for establishing, maintaining, expanding, and or refining the practice of white supremacy, racism, white supremacy, in any one or more areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and or war. This book, when correctly used, will help to promote thought, speech, and or action specifically designed to help reveal truth, promote justice, which is anti-white racism, white supremacy, and promote correctness. The ultimate purpose of this book and or any of its parts is to help produce peace. And we believe in peace, right? Which is shalom. All right? Which is shalom, which is shalom. So, in other words, this book is not to be used to be anti anything or anyone unless they are pro racism, white supremacy. If they themselves are anti racism, white supremacy, then technically, even though this book is supposed to be used for the victims of racism, white supremacy, and at first he talks about that means anybody who's black, basically. But then he says here, hey, if somebody's trying to come out of that, then they with us. You see that? That's what he said, right? They might have some things they need to learn too. You might have some things to learn. But he says, I'm putting stuff in this book, and anybody who's pro justice, and justice for the next couple of weeks is going to mean, especially in this series, justice for us is meaning what? Anti-racism, white supremacy. If you're anti-racism, white supremacy, then you're pro us. You're pro freedom. All right. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next thing. How to use this book. Number one, think seriously about everything that you read herein. Number two, speak and or act only in support of those observations and or acts that you believe will help most do the following. So only speak or act upon these things: things that reveal truth, things that produce justice. Once again, what is justice? All right. So start thinking different. Things that reveal truth, things that produce justice, and also things that produce correctness. All right. Statement of intent. To the best of my knowledge and understanding, the basic initial requirement for establishing justice among the people of the known universe is to first eliminate the practice of racism, white supremacy. All persons in the known universe, both skilled and unskilled, and by the way, when we talk about this, we know that racism, white supremacy comes out of sin, okay? All persons in the known universe, both skilled and unskilled, who have attempted to establish justice and or who have attempted to eliminate racism have so far failed. Right. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, I don't believe that it's possible to have this go away because it's sin. It's going to stay away to the end, but we can separate from it. All right. Therefore, back to his book, therefore, as a victim of racism and as one who is both subject to and a participant in the overall support of injustice, I intend to use what knowledge and understanding that has been given to me to help develop the correct procedures for eliminating racism and producing justice. Neely Fuller Jr., um, um, Neely Fuller Jr., July 23rd, 1982. Right? A lot of stuff in this. We're going to be going through quite a bit. Praise y'all. Right? But we have to have a code. And so, and so he's saying, and this is one of the biggest parts I think that we have to make sure that we do and say and remind ourselves of, whether we're saying we currently do this or we did this at some point, but we have to remind ourselves of this. Yeah, 1982. By the way, 1982 is the year I was born, so I always like seeing that, 1982. But he's saying very clearly here. He's saying very clearly here, very much so, like, hey, I need you guys to realize and to recognize and to think about and to realize that I myself have been, and in many ways still, because I'm not fully separate, I still am involved in racism, white supremacy. So I'm trying to destroy something. His mindset, as you'll get more and more of this, is that he's really in prison. And you as a prisoner can say, we talked about this on Tuesday, you as a prisoner can say all you want. Yeah, you free, king, you this and that. You can be free in your mind, and that's a freeing feeling, and you'll do prison time different. But don't forget, I've been in prison, and you can be free in your mind. I was really upset and frustrated at the beginning of it because I didn't even do anything. That being said, at the end of the day, you can be free up here. I got free up here again. I got into my word, and I was preaching to persons. I was helping, and I was doing a lot of stuff. And persons looked out for me, and I was playing a little bit of sports here and there and doing this and that. I was free in my mind, right? But at the end of the day, October 6th is my born day. So I was free in my mind. Real talk. I was free in my mind. But that doesn't mean when I walk outside the prison that I'm not still, that you can still be shanked. Right? There can still be somebody who want to be the biggest, baddest bully on the yard. They see 6'5.5" Pastor Kofi walking through there. You know, they don't know he's a minister or whatever at the time. They don't care about all that. They see this dude coming in, and it seemed like his celly, who's somebody who's in the game, seemed to got his back, and they might try to challenge me. And so just because I'm free up here doesn't mean I ain't, you know what I'm saying? Just because I'm free up here doesn't mean that I'm not doing this every once in a while. Just because I'm free up here doesn't mean that, you know, when I have those times to cry, you do that in your cell by yourself. Right? When you need to cry, you need to really be like, you got to find a place to be alone where nobody can see you, right? Nobody can hear you. When you got to have an ugly cry, you got to find a place to do that. If you can get away from some place, if you can go do your job for a second, whatever it is, but you got to go somewhere because you can't show weakness, right? Even though you're in prison. And I don't think a lot of us even think about that fact. Like, we keep talking about how free we are, but if you're still in the land of your captivity, you're still in prison. And guess what you do when you're in prison? If you want to protect yourself. Some of y'all been in prison. You already know what I'm about to say. If you want to protect yourself in prison, what's one of the first things that you do once you get in? Even if you don't want to do it, somebody will do it on your behalf. Guess what? One of the first things you do when you get in prison? I'm trying to help somebody. Well, fight, possibly. Right? Hopefully you don't get into a fight, but that could be. That's there you go. You find a group. And usually the group is already set for you. Right? Yeah, sure. Be quiet, do all that stuff, but guess what? They're gonna be cats yelling at you and trying to punk you out and trying to get you to be scared. They trying to see who's, forgive my language. I don't know. Can I say? I won't say the word be made. Some of y'all know what I mean. Female dog made, be made. They trying to figure out who be made in there, right? So sometimes you got to talk, right? You're gonna be pressed. Yeah, you're gonna be pressed. So you got to rip. But when you come in, right? I know there's some of these movies and some of this stuff, and everybody's like, "No, man, I just stayed to myself." No, no. When you come in there, whether you like it or not, you're already going to be put in the group because of racism, white supremacy, by the way. So if you come in there and you look like me, you already in the black group, right? There's a black group that's just black, usually like more Christian or whatever, but they black, or they're gonna be black Muslim, but you're gonna be in a black group, right? If not, you don't really want to be by yourself, but so much because you know why? Because somebody gonna come get you. The Aryan Nation up in that piece. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they looking for you to put somebody down. Every once in a while, their group is looking to smash somebody just because they got to prove who they are. And so you sitting in there trying to be blackity black by myself. I'm gonna stand for truth and no, no, you belong to somebody, or else you're gonna get got. See, when you realize you're in prison, you realize you need community. Even if you get out, even if you tell them I ain't with, some of them will look out for you. Like they're like, oh yeah, we know you ain't with this. We know you ain't really blah blah. We know you ain't really about it. You know you all these terms that we've used over time. We know you ain't really all that, whatever. But you know, okay, fine, run this for us. And they'll tell me, they'll tell you like, yo, so and so about to go down. So when such and such time hit, right? When it's such and such time, right? And they open up the doors. You need to go to the left because we going to the right. When we go to the right, this was about to happen, and you don't need to see. You don't need to be no witness. You don't need to blah blah, and then just come back after blah blah whatever. And if they ask you about anything, you ain't know that we told you, right? They'll still look out for you, but you're gonna belong to somebody. And there's too many of us that are walking around in this prison called racism, white supremacy, who want to keep acting like we ain't supposed to have no attachment to nobody. No, you're not making it out on your own. This is why I say, even though I love this book, you guys can tell I'm very excited that we're finally getting a chance to go through this book. I also have to make it a point that I know he keeps saying that you as an individual, I think he means really you as an individual will come out because he's giving us all a code. So I think I might even take that a little slightly wrong. The more I think about it, that he might not be saying you as an individual. I think he's saying that every individual has a right in their own time and to come out of this. And so you should be able to stand on your own 2 feet using this code that really is universal, at least for us as so-called black folk. I think that's what he really means, but it can come off a little different, right? And I'll be honest with you. So I could be putting something there that's not really there. Amen. But you got to have a safe place, right? And so I think that's really what he means, more so than any of the other stuff that even what I was saying earlier. The more I think about, more I hear it, more Holy Ghost is kind of putting on me. I think he's probably trying to say, it feels like he's trying to say, yo, all of you have your own opportunity, but at the end of the day, realize you're gonna have to come into something that's for us. You're in prison right now. You in a bad space, but you can still have a safe place. Oh, that's a word right there, right? You're in a bad space, but you can still have a safe place. You feel me? So we want to look at things a little different. Your book's coming tomorrow, praise God. So we're gonna look at things a little different through this prism, but it's important. I learned that I'm not really about that life. I hung around the cast that were somewhat. I can't even say I was deep into it. I know what it is to hold that thing when somebody else is maybe getting questioned or something like that once in a while. But I was never really deep into it and never really. I maybe I wanted to be, but I never could play it. I could really never play it like it. That's who I am. There are cats. They're part of SOC. There's cats that are still in my life that are still like that. And they don't mind protecting and helping and serving and doing stuff like that to make sure our community is straight. They play their part. I just know I'm not like that. But that being said, I know what it is to make sure that when I'm in places, I look for groups. I look to see like where if something goes down. If I'm in the middle of, we were in for the first time. I spent the night in Kentucky recently, and I was like, I don't know nothing about Kentucky, but I knew there are certain places there, even if I'm far away, that if I had to pick my family up, we had to roll, we running over here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why we're gonna try and get that green book together and stuff like that too. And we should know that there's a safe place. There's a place to where that's why even all the stuff that you guys are doing in your business, please don't be because we're gonna find out, we're gonna test this stuff out. Person's gonna let us know. Like, please don't give us products. Right? If you're gonna be part of this family and we're saying you're the only person to go, hey, yeah, then they need to be products that are natural. We don't want stuff with pork in it. We don't want stuff with this. We don't want stuff with that because we got to protect the community. It's got to be a safe place. We're in this. we're in this territory, and it's 11:01, so I'm going a little over. I'm finished. If you need to go, have a great day. We'll be doing our shout out in just a second. Um, but we're in this place to where, yeah, we need to go back to what the Most High is doing and what He wants us to be and who He wants us to be, in His name, right? And as He's developed this place for us to be able to make sure that we're protected, He's developed this place for us to ensure that we feel great. He's put this place together, excuse me, to ensure that we are, coming together and feeling awesome and feeling loved, et cetera, et cetera. We got to come to a place where we realize that we're in the land of our captivity, in this so-called prison. We have some things that we can do. The reason why Negroes had Negro spirituals is because that was a way of escaping. Not just only to escape while you were on the plantation, but once you left, you knew to follow that star. Why? Because it had been sung to you so much, even if it couldn't be taught to you. Right, Mama and them. It's important that you remember, you learn some of these hymns, and you learn some of the stuff, and you learn some of the things that came from before you. Right? Because Mama and them would come to you and they say, hey, boy, hey, girl, you remember that song? You remember about this? You remember about that? Don't ever forget. Don't ever forget. They say that to you. You'd be like, why? And then before you know it, a couple years later, Mama done left. She ran. And then you remember, oh yeah, she's following the star. She'll make sure you fine. She's gonna get you to a certain age. But then she was asking you that because she left. And her goal was to make it over the River Jordan, which really was the Ohio River. Stuff like that. And to make sure that you knew the star. And she was teaching you. She was giving you something. Even if you didn't fully comprehend it, there was a code. That's right. It was taught through song. And it was worship. And at the same time, the worship should cause you to become free. Somebody gonna catch it. So the worship, remember, worship is extreme respect. Respect. The worship even that we teach is to help us to become free. You hear me, beloved? Don't get into worship and you're not even going to become free. It doesn't free you up to become what Yah wants you to do. This worship should cause freedom. Do you hear what I'm saying, beloved? This worship should cause us to go to a higher level of freedom. And we should be teaching this down generations. And somebody didn't teach this to us. Somebody didn't institute it. Well, it's gotten to a place to where we forgot that this is necessary and it was mandatory. But every day we on here, every day we're doing anything in life, we should be working our behinds off to ensure that we have the code down. Ensuring that we live by the code. We operate by the code. We wear the code. Right? We operate in code. We wear the code. Right? This is the boundary. This is the fringe. This is the hem. If I could touch the hem of his garment, that they're not just speaking this, like, to a lot of persons, they don't get. We talked about him versus him. A lot of persons wouldn't even be able to get that message because they don't recognize the code. When it said she touched the hem of his garment, my mind immediately goes to this. You hear what I'm saying? I'm not saying you got to wear your hem 24/7. I'm not saying you got to wear it every day of your life. I'm saying I know when they say it, this is a cultural reference. This is the boundary. This thing ain't supposed to touch the ground. It's supposed to be clean. It's supposed to tell you this is where the garment ends. If I'm wearing this, especially if I'm wearing a mantle, I'm supposed to be able to take this off. My mantle, my coat, my jacket would even have the fringes on it at times. And I would if I say I'm putting the mantle on somebody, I'm putting the fringes on somebody. You see what I'm saying? That message is not coming from a place because, oh, Pastor Kofi's all that. It's coming from a place because I live what this says. And since I live what it says, right, when I speak on it, I speak from a place of life. And therefore what? It's more abundant. You see that? Right? It's not because, like, true life, right? When I see that, when I read that life, when I read into life, when life speaks into my life, then this word speaks into my life, I see this. Because I wear it, I live it, I operate in it. So when I see it says put the mantle on, I'm already thinking the fringe. When the sister touches the hem of the garment, in my mind, I go straight to, oh yeah, that's the hem. That's the protection. That's the mantle. He was covering her. She didn't even have to touch him. She was saying touch him. This is why I believe there's power in clothes. Because she wasn't looking to touch him. She said she couldn't touch him. She was looking to touch him. Why would she touch this? Because when holy men, when Levites wore this, right, they didn't have to wear it 24/7. But when you saw them wearing this, you knew it was on. You see a Levite wearing this, you know what time it is. It's code. You catch that? When you see a Levite, when you see Solomon wearing his sweatshirt from Brother Jermaine, that's code. It's on. Right? We were walking through the airport. Brother stops me, hey, shalom, brother, all this stuff. And I came out and I was washing my hands, and so he was kind of walking in front of us, and I was like, shalom, bro. Have a great one. Then he turned around, he shakes my hand again, and he goes like, I used to listen to you. You were on that, whatever. And he said, like, first thing that he noticed was the fringes. I didn't even have mine on. Solomon had them on. Then he saw the hair, and then he saw my face, and so he was gonna walk away without even saying, but you don't know, like the culture that you carry. The culture that you carry. You see what I'm saying? So that's where that even came from. Those of you who know the sermon I'm talking about from a couple nights ago, right? I think it was it Tuesday night? No, Monday night, something like Monday night, right? That's where that comes from. That wasn't from, oh, Pastor Kofi's just better than you. No, that's because the culture, the code is so ingrained in my body, my soul, and my spirit that I got to follow it no matter what. So we'll leave it there. Thank y'all for being on. Appreciate, love you. We hope that you guys continue to do great, mighty, marvelous, majestic things. I will see you guys for tonight. I'll see you guys tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Don't forget, starting today, men, women, children, please go. You have to be a free member. You don't have to be a paid member, but if you're a free member, every day we're going to go over the 12 myths of Christmas on Patreon. So what I'm going to do is, during the day on Patreon, I'm going to put the video that you're supposed to watch if you want to watch it before. If you can't, just join us. We'll watch it on Zoom first. Prayerfully, everything will work on Zoom. If for some reason it doesn't, we'll just direct everybody to the Clapper page, or our Clapper page. But and we'll do it live there. But hopefully it'll work on Zoom. So just go on there. It'll have the Zoom link on Patreon. I will try my best to text and send it out to everybody. But if you can just go to Patreon, look for Kofi Afforded. You don't even have to pay, the for the $5 one, or even the one for SOC University. You can just go on there, be a free member. As a free member, we'll make sure that we have certain stuff that's available to you, and you can go ahead and get that. Okay. And but you'll be able to see it there every day. I'll post a video for you guys to watch in advance if you want. We'll watch it again on Zoom. I'll send the Zoom link out beforehand as well, and then we'll speak on it on Zoom. That'll be every day at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time, starting today for the next 12 days. So from today through the 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern New York time, no matter where you are, men, women, and children, feel free to come on there, listen to it with us. We'll go through the stuff, and then we'll talk about it after for a little bit of time. And we'll try to finish those up probably about 7-ish or so. Then at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, we'll do our live session today. And then if I don't see you for either one of those, we'll see you tomorrow, where we continue this part 3 into this series called Neely Fuller Code. So prayerfully, you guys continue to show up. We're going to get ready to do our shout out. For those of you who've never done a shout out with us before, we'll explain how that works in just a little bit, but you can join us on TikTok for that, or just stay on TikTok and we'll prayerfully get you some information that normally you may not get in certain places, certain ways from us. But thank you all for being on. We appreciate, love you. We honor you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody again, Women in Red, coming up virtually at the end of the month on the 28th, December 31st, going to be watch night service. If I'm doubling, triple checking now before I give Minister Shante the final list and just be like, this is what we're working with at least now. If we miss you, you can still get one in January, but I'd like to get all the babies something by the end of this year. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you haven't heard from me or something like that, just for me to double check and to make sure I got names and addresses and all that stuff together. Please, ma'am, please, sir, just make sure that you double check with me, because I'm going to give Minister Shante at least some of the list today. I'm going to give you at least some of the list today, and we'll try to give the rest of it later on. All right. But love you all to life. You guys take care. Continue to do amazing, tremendous, outstanding things in the kingdom of Yah. And we appreciate, love you all. Thank you for being on. We're going to get ready to do our shout out here on TikTok. If you'd like to go ahead and join us, feel free to come on and join us over on TikTok for the shout out. And for everybody who's on here listening in many different places, we once again give all praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer. herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Thank you, babe, for all that you do for the community. Love you very much. To each and every one of you, whether you be moderator, ministerial staff, SOC, Lottie Dottie, everybody, if you agree with us, disagree with us, your first time, one time of many, we hope that you guys have a amazing day. You continue to change lives. And we look forward to prayerfully at some point seeing you again in the very near future. Don't forget the 5 to 10 coming up every Sunday if you're doing it by week. And thank you again. Thank you for offerings. Thank you for anything that you've been giving in, as donations. Even thank you for those who are giving stuff to the storehouse that we might be able to put it away. We love, honor, and respect each and every one of you for what you're doing in the kingdom. Continue to be greater, continue to be pushed, and continue to be greater at being yourself, that you might be freed from a wicked code, from a wicked system, from fallen angels that give fallen messages. All right, love y'all. Preach, I love you. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, take care, peace. Prayerfully, I'll see you later through Patreon on the Zoom link. And if not, we'll see you this evening. If not,